allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Very good.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you very much, everybody. See you later. Be good. See you later. You got a quorum?
Let me go grab the number on the phone. Yes, we got a quorum. One housekeeping thing, Veterans Day. I don't know if you can squeeze that
Okay,
in.
sure.
Transfer station's closed.
Town meeting will now be in order. I have examined the warrants and they have been properly served. Would everybody please rise for a prayer? On this, the eve of a national election, as we begin this first session of the annual Fall Town Meeting, let us reflect on how fortunate all of us are that we have the opportunity to choose our own leaders going forward, and how fortunate we are that some of us have an opportunity to seek to serve. Let us commit tonight to one thing at this meeting: to listen to all, to ponder the issues, and to exercise our collective judgment in the spirit of a true democracy. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, at the beginning of each town meeting, we have a group of 7 preliminary motions. You should have a copy of this in your book, I believe. Is that correct, Mark? It's in the thing, so we'll start out with those. And the first one, it's moved and seconded that Mel Kleckner, Town Manager, Mark Toogood, Assistant Town Manager, Joe Bonner, Controller, and Wade Welch, Town Council, who are not town meeting members, be permitted to sit at the front of the auditorium with the Board of Selectmen during all sessions of this town meeting. All those in favor of that, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, the ayes have it. And then motion number 2 through 7. Any questions on those? It's moved and seconded that motions 2 through 7, preliminary motions 2 through 7 be approved. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, the ayes have it, and the motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, our business tonight is primarily going to be zoning. However, we have Article 1, which is to hear and act upon the reports of the various town bodies. And when we do that in accordance with our bylaws, after that we have to take a 10-minute break in order for precincts who have unfilled vacancies to fill them. And tonight we have 2, precinct 1 and 2, I believe, have a vacancy, and we'll break as soon as Article 1 is over and ask the members, town meeting members from precinct 1 and 2 to go to the cafeteria. We'll fill those vacancies, and then 10 minutes later, we'll come back and start on Article 2. Article 2 is going to be indefinitely postponed, and for those people that are at home and neighbors that may be in the audience, we have Articles 3, 4, and 5 that follow, which are zoning articles. And so we will get right into that, and Article 3 is the first one, and that'll be the Immaculate Conception property. So we turn now to Article 1. Article 1 is to hear in the reports of the town officers. It's moved and seconded the reports of the town officers be received and placed on file. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, the motion carries. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's been customary in Winchester and in all New England town meetings that the Article 1 reports, there are no comments, no questions, and no debate. They are reports that the elected officials in some committees give to the town meeting and are placed on file. When we vote to put them on file, we don't necessarily accept them or reject them, just as a chance for the leaders of the various boards to make statements if they choose to. And the first speaker this evening is Tom Howley. Mr. Howley. All speakers are going to try to keep their remarks to 5 minutes. We have about 6 speakers, so we should have about 30 minutes. Mr. Howley.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Town meeting members, boards, and committees. Since our board was organized in April, we have been working with the town's senior management, other boards and committees, and our residents and business owners to build a culture of good critical thinking, leadership, collaboration, respect, and accountability. We have not always succeeded in this effort, but we remain determined on the town's behalf to create an environment in which the best critical thinking can occur. Beginning with our budget discussions of last spring and continuing through the summer, 5 priorities emerged for our board: energy conservation, recycling and the redesign of the transfer station, collective bargaining and health insurance, cost-cutting and revenue enhancement, and flood mitigation and drainage. Although there are many other issues that consume an enormous amount of senior management and board attention, several of which are the subject of warrant articles at this town meeting, we believe that if we can make material progress in each of these 5 areas, we will have accomplished something that will have a long-term positive impact on the town's finances and will enhance the quality of life of our residents, businesses, and employees. I want to quickly speak to each of these priorities. Energy conservation. The town's energy expenditures for fiscal year 2007 are projected to grow by 25% from the prior year and consume 36% of all revenue growth allowed under Prop 2.5 during this same period. With the leadership of the Energy Management Committee, School Committee, Town Manager, we have established a formal energy conservation policy, developed an energy conservation index to measure the energy efficiency of each of our facilities on a monthly basis, and selected a consultant who is now conducting an energy audit of our most inefficient buildings. This detailed audit will be the basis for a multi-year program of specific capital improvements that have a high return on investment and that will be proposed for capital planning and town meeting approval next spring. The transfer station and recycling. In fiscal year 2007, the transfer station is estimated to have an annual operating deficit of at least $200,000. The elimination or substantial reduction of this deficit can be accomplished through an increase in commercial and residential fees. But to reduce the amount of fee increases, we need to achieve a combination of expense reductions and increased recycling. Our goal is to double our rate of recycling and have a fully redesigned transfer station, including a convenient recycling center, by the end of 2008. You will hear more about these capital improvements as the board speaks in support of the Capital Planning Committee's appropriation request. But until those transfer station improvements are completed, we will continue to concentrate on providing the information and tools necessary to substantially increase school, municipal, and residential recycling. At the town manager's direction, this effort is ably being led by our town clerk, and we greatly appreciate her leadership on this issue. Collective bargaining and health insurance. Under the town manager's leadership, we continue our efforts to negotiate collective bargaining agreements that are fair to our employees and reflective of the severe financial limitations that the town faces. Our negotiations are made more difficult by the fact that skyrocketing health insurance costs threaten our ability not only to provide wage increases, but to maintain core municipal and school services. From 2006 to 2007, our health insurance premiums increased by $615,000, consuming 36% of all revenue growth under Proposition 2.5 during the same period. These increases in health insurance premiums are unsustainable by Winchester. To reduce the cuts in core services and employment that otherwise must result from uncontrolled insurance costs, we must achieve the savings that will come from long overdue changes in the design of our insurance plans. This is a difficult issue, and we are strongly committed to working with our employees to achieve this mutually essential goal by next spring's town meeting. You will hear more about this as the board speaks in support of the Personnel Board's warrant article later. Flood mitigation and drainage improvements. Over the past 10 years, Winchester's homeowners, businesses, and public facilities have suffered $20 million in flood-related damages. With 4 flood mitigation projects completed and 8 more to be done, and these are the most valuable of the entire lot, our comprehensive program of flood mitigation improvement is now stopped until approvals are received from a combination of federal, state, and local agencies. In the next 3 months, we will respond to questions that have been raised through our filing of a supplemental draft environmental impact report. We also are working hard to build the political support of the communities that will benefit from the downstream. I know what you said about 5 minutes, but could I have 5 more minutes?
It's moved and seconded that Mr. Howley's speaking time be extended 5 minutes. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed?
Thank you very much.
Ayes have it.
We are also working hard to build the political support of the communities that will benefit from the downstream improvements upon which our program depends. In the spring, we hope to return to town meeting with a request for an appropriation to complete the final environmental impact report so that we can then begin the remaining flood mitigation projects. As difficult and as time-consuming and as costly as this effort has been, we believe that if we remain focused and work smart, engage our neighboring communities, and appeal to the regulators to allow us to responsibly address the terrible damage that flooding continues to cause in our community, that we will significantly improve the health, safety, and welfare of Winchester. And we greatly appreciate the support that the Capital Planning Committee and Town Meeting have shown to us in this effort. Cost reduction and revenue enhancement, the last of our priorities I want to cover. Last spring, the Finance Committee urged us to reduce the town budget or increase revenues by $1 million in each of fiscal years 2008 and 2009. Consistent with our report to town meeting last spring, the town manager recently projected a $2.3 million operating deficit in 2008, largely fueled by energy, insurance, and wage benefit increases. I would like to show you the slide essentially similar to the one that I showed to you last spring. It unfortunately has not changed a great deal. I know this is a lot of information to take in, but based upon the town manager's preliminary budget projections, this slide shows revenues increasing in fiscal year 2008 at about 2.61%. This is down from our historic operating revenue growth of 4.3% because the town manager is projecting lower rates of growth, of new growth, state aid, and the tax overlay account, which we benefited from last year. There are other factors figured in as well. Expenditures are increasing at a 5.13% rate, and the resulting deficit in fiscal year 2008 is projected at approximately $3,820,000 and $876. And that is then reduced to a deficit of $2,370,876 after applying $1,450,000 in the town's reserves. This will then leave a reserve balance for fiscal year 2009 of approximately $2,074,710. We are spending down. We are seeing, if this rate continues, we will be seeing the end of our reserve balances. I now want to direct your attention to the sensitivity analysis portion of the slide. If we experience greater than budgeted increases in health insurance, for example, and this sensitivity analysis shows a 3% increase over that which the model contains, or energy, or additional teaching staff, for example, if we were to hire 5 or 6 more teachers, you can change that. And special education, if that were to go up perhaps 2% more than what is built into the model, it will materially increase the operating deficit, increase our reliance on reserves, or increase the cuts we must make in other areas, and therefore make our work much more difficult. And I show this to you simply to point out the sensitivity that exists around our budget and the discipline we have to have in order to maintain control of it. Last Thursday, the town manager began a discussion with our board to determine the cuts and changes that will be necessary to substantially reduce the town's budget. This is a daunting task. And working with the town manager, our board intends to provide our budget recommendations by the end of December. We greatly appreciate the participation and support of the Finance Committee in our budget discussions, and we will continue to count on their participation, as well as that of the school committee, other boards and committees, department heads, and the public, in what we intend to be a very collaborative and public effort of shaping our priorities and our finances. For each of the 5 priority areas I have mentioned, it is very difficult to change the direction of the ship of state. And again tonight, our board and town manager publicly challenge ourselves to make material progress that you and the public can measure. We do not know how successful we will be, but we are determined to not let go and to do the very best we can on the town's behalf. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Chair recognizes the chairman of the Finance Committee, Chris Linsky.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening. My name is Chris Linsky. I'm the chairman of the Finance Committee. I live on Manchester Road. So great. The Finance Committee would like to remind town meeting that we need to control the growth of the budget to match sustainable level of growth in town revenues. Last year's efforts were a start, but the process must continue to address operating shortfalls. In the spring, we made headway by improving visibility into the budget. The town provided detailed revenue information, realistic expenditure numbers, and a multi-year spending plan in a timely manner. The Finance Committee, the Board of Selectmen, and the town manager met to ensure that those basic numbers were supportable and agreed upon by all parties. The 08 budget process has already started. Both the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen, as you just heard, have provided the town manager with suggestions for expense reduction and revenue enhancement. Early work in Town Hall has identified higher 06 reversions that will yield $1 million in free cash. However, the 07 budget draws $2 million of reserves, and as you just saw, the 08 preliminary budget draws an additional $1.5 million in reserves. The 08 preliminary budget includes a $3.7 million increase over FY07. 3 items account for 74% of this growth: energy, health insurance, and education. Each year we examine every line item to find possible savings. To make any meaningful impact and to have any control over the growth in the budget, we have to impact these high-value items. Energy. Selectman Haley already mentioned this. The FY08 preliminary budget includes $3.5 million in energy costs. The town has made positive move in this year's budget to stabilize the price we pay for energy. Now is the time to reduce the amount of energy that we use. The Energy Management Committee has made progress, but we have to move faster. Each town and school building must reduce the consumption and identify the projects that will increase efficiency. We have to manage the energy budget closer to the sustainable growth range. Health insurance. Again, the FY08 preliminary budget includes $7.7 million in health insurance costs. Despite the changes in the new school contract, some projections show that the health insurance cost has the largest increase in the entire budget. Health insurance costs are going to rise, but their growth is controllable to a degree. The town must invest the time and effort necessary to control these things. This is long overdue. The FY08 preliminary budget includes $29.5 million for education. Salaries make up about 86% of that cost. The school committee and the teachers union have produced a new contract that holds the base increase to 2% in the first year. Factors including step increase and column moves increase those costs by an additional 2.8% in the first year. People hear the 2%. They don't hear about the 4.8% or the 4.2% after retirement savings. The same contract calls for further growth in FY08 and FY09, creating effective salary growth of 5.2% or 4.6% after retirement savings. Salaries continue to grow faster than our revenues without increasing the staff. Closing the gap will require growth targets for both expenditures and revenues. Expenditure targets are not just about cutting costs and services, it's about managing improvements in productivity. This is straightforward in some areas, but problematic in others. An improved snow plowing fleet, or a new street sweeper, or faster lawnmowers pay obvious dividends. However, approaches to the schools, the fire department, the police department, they run into policy or contractual requirements that oppose those changes. We need to structure the process to reward the town's employees, to find methods to reduce the budget. They're the experts. We need their help finding creative methods to improve the productivity, provide the same services while reducing these costs. Methods of increasing the revenue must also be examined. This involves increasing fees and taxes. In recent years, the school-related fees have increased greatly. We've reached the point where further increases may materially harm the programs and the participants they're collected to serve. In other areas, however, fees have remained steady for years. These fees need to be examined to see if they should be increased. The Finance Committee is committed to improving the town's financial health, controlling expenditure growth, and preserving the financial reserves. We'll explore every option to construct the budget without an override. However, before we exhaust all our reserves, before we recommend sweeping reductions in programs and personal services causing even more harm, we may want to consider a reasonable general override. One more minute. This is the dialogue that the town as a whole needs to have over the next several months. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The chair now recognizes Bob Conner of the School Committee. And then Mel, too.
Mr. Moderator, fellow town meeting members, fellow town boards, it's my pleasure to stand before you tonight representing the Winchester Public Schools. I also have 5 topics. They're different 5 topics, but I also have 5 topics to talk about tonight, and I ask that you keep them in mind as we go through the town meeting. They are enrollment growth and benchmarking, state aid, buildings, contracts, and the search for a new superintendent. Winchester's dramatic enrollment growth continues. On top of last year's record growth, we have added 105 new students this year. We now have 3,976 students in the Winchester Public Schools. We stand alone in terms of this enrollment growth. A look at the 20 peer towns that are represented in this municipal benchmarking studies show that between 2001 and 2005, 19 of the towns, their total enrollment grew 1%. Winchester's grew 11% during that same period. So again, to be clear, between 2001 and 2005, every other town, total enrollment growth 1%, Winchester's 11%. In addition, since the 2 years that this data was compiled, we added almost another 300 students since this report, another 8% on top of those numbers. When you take a look at some of the other findings in here, I think it's important to show as well some other data that's worthwhile sharing. Winchester spends 10% less per capita on education than the average of our peers. The average of our peers. We spend 10% less on per pupil, per year spending than the average of our peers. We rank 19th out of 20 with respect to per pupil spending per year. We rank 19th out of 20 with regard to state aid, and we get $360 less per pupil per year from the state. When you take a look at some of the other data that's worth sharing, you'll find that we spend more than the average of our peer towns on things like in-classroom education, in-classroom instruction, teaching, technology, textbooks, in-classroom special education. This shouldn't surprise you. As we have retreated to the core, as our enrollment has grown, we have made the preservation of these core services our last stand. We spend less than the average of our peers on things like guidance, teaching assistants, transportation, athletics, and a host of other things that we have cut as a result of lack of funding. The good news is that after the June town meeting, we did receive from the state more state aid, or the news of more state aid. And if you remember in late April, many of you boarded buses to go to Stand for Children on Boston Common to ask our state legislatures to provide more public funding for education. And they heard us, we had some success, and we got a modest increase of $170,000 for Winchester. It's something, yes, but not nearly what we need in order to fund our unique enrollment growth as well as educate our children. Upon receiving confirmation of these funds, the school committee moved quickly to designate those towards two areas of greatest need: high school technology and elementary reading support. For the first time, teachers in Winchester High School have computers in their classrooms. Now, these computers help alleviate the administrative load and get our teachers to focus more on curriculum planning and daily teaching. So that's very good news. This is a major breakthrough and allows Winchester to help Winchester High School to move its goal closer to better educating our students and preparing them for higher education and life after Winchester. We also added an elementary reading support person, very critical and a big need in our system at a very important developmental time for our young children. It should be noted that with an eye towards 2008, the school committee chose to spend most of this new state aid on non-recurring expenses. Despite this welcome increase in state aid, we now get $900 per student per year from the state, about 10% of what it costs to educate our children, each child. In 2002, we received almost $1,100 per student per year. If we got that money now, it would be another $650,000 for on an annual basis for Winchester. For that reason, and I encourage all of us to be vigilant and active in lobbying our state legislature for more funds to educate our students in Winchester. As our enrollment grows, our space is full in our schools. Throughout our elementary through all our elementary schools, we have one open classroom. In many other schools, we have used makeshift classrooms out of other purposes, other rooms that were designated for other purposes. McCall Middle School has almost 900 students in it, in a school that was designed for 800 students. With your approval, we commissioned a study, an enrollment study for the elementary schools. The study showed that from 1999 to 2006, the population, our elementary population, increased by 222 students, or 17%, and those extra kids are moving their way through all of the grades in our system. The study also showed that the elementary population will grow another 8% over the next few years. We are working with the EFP. May I have 5 more minutes, sir? I won't take that long.
Okay, how about 2 minutes? Oh, no. Moved and seconded.
Five to be sure we don't have this conversation.
Moved and seconded. Speaker's time be extended 5 minutes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Thank you.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries.
We are
Mr.
working
Potter.
with the EFPBC and the Capital Committee to develop short-term and long-term plans to alleviate our overcrowding problem. You'll hear from Dr. Marini later in this town meeting about the new process for funding school buildings. It's an entirely different process. We have already submitted our statements of interest to the state for each of our buildings that outline the needs that they have. In order to move forward, the state requires us to update our facilities master plan, and you'll hear about that in Article 17. I'd like to spend a few minutes on contracts, which is my fourth topic for those of you who are keeping score. The school committee and Winchester's Teachers Association reached a 3-year teacher contract settlement agreement this summer. The contract successfully addresses the new insurance split to help reduce the town's insurance cost. When the teacher's compensation is calculated on a fully loaded basis, and we do that, we fully disclose all of every element in the teacher's contract, the aggregate increase falls within the historical growth rate of the town. Containing the overall growth rate is extremely important to us, and as you heard earlier tonight, very important to everyone as well. In the spring, the Finance Committee and the Personnel Committee removed $470,000 from our budget. That represented a 2% increase, and you'll hear later in this, in Article 11, the Personnel Board will ask the 2% return to our budget. $470,000 came out in the spring to represent the 2% increase, and we're trying to put it back to fund the increases. As you know, Dr. Marini has announced his plans to retire at the end of the school year. His shoes will be difficult ones to fill. His early announcement provides us with the best opportunity to meet the challenge. The school committee's #1 priority for this year is to do that. We are committed to a very open and collaborative process with the community and the school through the use of focus groups and a screening committee. We will also ensure a highly confidential process during the early stages to make sure that we get the best possible candidates. We've already retained a search consultant, created a very detailed timeline, and communicated our focus group and screening committee plans to the school system and committee. Out on the table was a one-page document. I hope you all got it. And if anybody at home is interested in the screening committee, please contact Frida Canavan at the superintendent's office. We realize that this is a highly competitive process, and we will strive to meet our timeline and get the best possible candidate in March. The success of our school system is dependent upon many people in this room to come together to provide the support and infrastructure for success. We have the EFPBC, we have the Finance Committee, we have the Capital Committee, the selectmen, town meeting members, parents, other boards, and volunteers, all pulling in the same direction. And while many factors make the going challenging, we are resolute in our objective for outstanding education for our children. And when we do work together, all we need to do is get out of their way and watch them achieve, as we saw earlier. The results are impressive. Their results are spectacular at times because of them and because of all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Chair recognizes Mr. Van Aken, Chairman of the Planning Board. Mr. Van Aken, you also have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Van Aken.
I'm here with a list of only 2 things, and they're both good news, which may come as a nice break from some of the earlier discussions. The first thing that I'd like to report is that we have made an appointment of a part-time town planner. This has been made possible because this town meeting approved the funds at the last meeting, and we have appointed Miss Betsy Ware, new planner who joins us with some 25 years of experience in municipal planning, including work in Ipswich, in Concord, and in Cambridge. Could I introduce to you, please, Miss Betsy Ware? The second piece of good news is that we are about to appoint Goody and Clancy, a nationally known planning firm that has just completed, in fact, the Wellesley Master Plan to lead us in our efforts of a comprehensive master plan for Winchester. This firm, in part, was picked because it has strong demonstrated skills in community outreach, an approach that we feel is critical to the usefulness and success of a comprehensive plan for this town. In the past months, we have been collecting and preparing materials so we can get a running start on this. One such document is called Profiles for Planning. This is available in the library, will shortly be available online, is being shared with many boards and commissions, and sort of sets the stage in terms of data as we move ahead. We've also been developing fiscal models because fiscal aspects are clearly a part of our planning and yours and need to be cranked into the equation. And we're also beginning reviews of subdivision regulations and zoning bylaws. The emphasis of the first phase of this master plan effort is going to be on the neighborhoods, on economic development, and on fiscal impacts. We have already identified as high priority areas of work, including North Main Street, open space, mansionization, affordable housing, historic preservation, and the Central Business District. And as our discussions later this evening will demonstrate, our zoning code needs to be revisited and in some cases revised in response to these issues and the ones that we will collectively discuss in Articles 4 and 5 later tonight. As some of you may have heard, the Planning Board had raised the issue of a possible freeze on development in GBD 2 and GBD 3 for North Main Street. However, this is not a simple matter. It requires careful deliberation, and considerable legal advice, and the board has put this aside at this point in time and will possibly revisit it with legal counsel in an open meeting later in November or December. At this time, though, I recommend town meeting should proceed with tonight's business and make the assumption that the freeze is not a factor. We look forward to participating in and leading the master plan process. It's our objective to get all of us to consider not only the short-term impacts, but also the longer term. Winchester will be dramatically changed by the actions of this town meeting, the actions that it takes tonight, and the actions it takes in the years ahead. The Planning Board promises to provide a thoughtful contact and context for our deliberations and decisions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Roach, Chairman of the Board of Library Trustees. Mr. Roach has always been very well known for staying within the 5 minutes.
Brevity is the word, huh? Mr. Moderator, members of the boards and commissions, friends, let me begin by thanking all of you, Mr. Kleckner, Finance Committee, town meeting members, and everyone in the community for your support in restoring the library's weekday and Saturdays hours to fiscal year '04 levels in this budget year. We are still growing, though, almost 50% in the last 5 years, in all phases, in patrons' visits, in questions to our people, to our circulation. In every area, we grow and grow and grow. The library launched a long-range planning project this fall to better serve our community in the years ahead. I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, have seen the survey that had been sent out. We had 429 responses online and on paper, and we're pleased to see that 97% of the respondents considered the library either extremely important or important to them. In rating the library, staff helpfulness received top marks, with inviting atmosphere and interlibrary loan coming in second and third. The responses reflect the library's commitment to serve every segment of the community with the allocation of our staffing and hours. This year, we will partner with the schools by devoting 70% of the children's nonfiction book budget to enhance the school curriculum, coordinating with the curriculum coordinator about class assignments, and networking more closely with school librarians and English teachers. We will offer more computer classes, build up our collection of ESL materials, provide more foreign films and books on CD, offer software to allow patrons to book museum passes from home, and provide readers at both the Gables and at the Winchester Nursing Center. In response to patrons' demand for restoration of the Sunday hours, the Friends of the Winchester Public Library gave a leadership gift and private fundraising efforts through a wine tasting a couple of weeks ago, will allow the library to open for 32 Sundays beginning in January. And we thank you all for that assistance. As the library concludes its long-range planning project this fall, we will use the information gathered from interviews, surveys, focus groups, and planning committees to determine future library services for Winchester. The data collected will help us anticipate the evolving needs of our community in the next 5 years. We certainly would appreciate any input from any one of our patrons to suggest any improvements that we can make at the library. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roach. Mr. Mortensen, did you have anything to report tonight on the, yes, you do, Committee on Government Regulations? Mr. Mortensen.
Ladies and gentlemen, as most of you know, the Committee on Government Regulations is one of the several standing committees of the town meeting created under the charter and the bylaws, and its function is twofold. It consists of 8 members of this meeting, one from each precinct, and its first function is to review and report to you on anything which comes before the town meeting which may have an effect upon the charter or upon the general bylaws, as distinguished from the zoning bylaws. Although the fall town meeting is generally thought to be the one in which parties are encouraged to concentrate motions which do not have a financial impact, this time around it appears that, in the opinion of the committee, that none of the articles which are before you in this warrant tonight really warrant a report from the committee. The committee's function has been limited to trying to work with proponents so that the way they draft their proposed bylaws are consistent with the format, language, tenor, and so forth of the bylaws and the charter. Also, to try to work out any wording problems before the motion reaches you here at this meeting so that it will save time and avoid unnecessary hang-ups. The other and more important this year function of the Committee on Government Regulations, however, is to conduct a biennial review of the bylaws. Our current bylaws were adopted, believe it or not, 30 years ago in 1976, immediately after the Home Rule Charter was adopted by public referendum. There has been no decennial review of the bylaws as such since that time, even though a reading of the charter might suggest we ought to do it every 10 years. In part, that's been because of the conservative approach taken by the Committee on Government Regulations over the past 30 years, which has been not to run around looking for things to write bylaws about, but rather to wait until someone comes forth and says, this is a problem I see, I would like to propose a bylaw, and at which point we try to work with them. But the committee has religiously tried to stay out of being its own proponent of bylaws. Indeed, when people come forward with proposals, the committee tries studiously to avoid taking a position on the merits insofar as one can, reserving our own right to vote as town meeting members, yea or nay. This year, however, as the charter anticipates, we are going to invite each of the town boards and committees, and by my remarks here tonight, invite each of you to consider the question, is there something in the manner in which the town's government operates under the code of bylaws which you think is broken, or not working well, or missing? And if that is so, we encourage you to raise the topic, if not necessarily the finished language, by communicating with the members of the Committee on Government Regulations. And if you can't find the one from your precinct, the best way to do that is do it through the town clerk, who has been very obliging in this regard. The committee will then be in touch with you and arrange a meeting so that we can talk about what you hope to accomplish and what the purpose is. And we will try to do this in a very transparent and public way so that if any idea is seriously being proposed, it is widely notified to the town so that there can be wide discussion in insofar as possible. So this is an invitation to you to participate in something which is not supposed to happen so often. The bylaws say at least once every year. Well, here's 30 years later, out and running. If you have something you think merits consideration, now would be a good time to raise it, and we'll try to bring this to a head by the spring town meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mortensen. My understanding is the Committee on Rules is going to speak on Article 2, so they'll waive their right to speak here. And ladies and gentlemen, that completes the reports of the town officers. And under the bylaw, we have to take a break. And Precinct 1 and Precinct 2 town meeting members, please go to the cafeteria and vote for one new town meeting member in each precinct. That's Precinct 1 and 2. And those elected, please come up here and I'll swear them in and we'll get going. And we'll meet back here at 8:30 sharp. Thank you very much. Meeting will be in recess.
Coverage of town meeting is brought to you by Curves Winchester, a 30-minute strength training, cardio, and weight loss center. Join our 12-month CD program today and get the rest of the year free. Now open Sundays. New look, new hours, new you. That's Curves Winchester.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our WinCam's coverage of the fall annual town meeting. I'm Alan Iden. Very brief first part of the session tonight, but a very full warrant. As were our town meeting rules, we have listened to the reports of the town officers given under Article 1, and the town meeting is in recess to elect members to vacant positions on town meeting members. So let's just recap what we've heard so far. If you're just tuning in, the reports were first from Tom Howley, the chairman of the Board of Selectmen. He spoke about the 5 priorities of the board, those 5 priorities being energy conservation, increased audits of town buildings for energy efficiency, the transfer station improvements and recycling. He said right now the transfer station is working at a $200,000 deficit, but the selectmen's goal is to double recycling efforts by the year 2008 and completely redesign the transfer station. Collective bargaining. In that issue, he said that the town's expenses are up $615,000 in health care costs between 06 and 07, fiscal year 06 and fiscal year 07. Fourth, flood mitigation. He said there are 12 flood mitigation projects. 4 of them are done. 8 of them are still remain to be completed. And finally, cost reduction and revenue enhancement to overcome what is projected to be a $2.3 million deficit in the fiscal year 08 budget. We heard from Chris Linsky, the chairman of the Finance Commission, who said that the FY 07 budget draws $1 million from reserve revenues, and the 08 budget will draw an additional $1.5 million out of that. He said that they applauded the Selectmen's efforts, Finance Committee applauds the Selectmen's efforts in energy conservation because the $3.5 million of the current budget is in energy costs. He also warned that the town may need to have to consider a general override for fiscal year 08. Bob O'Connor, chairman of the school committee, spoke on enrollment growth. He said the enrollment of the Winchester Public Schools grew 11% between 2001 and 2005, and in 20 other towns with which Winchester compares itself to, the average was 1% during that same period. He said Winchester spends 10% less on average per pupil, spends 10% less per capita than average, and is 19th out of 20th in per pupil spending. He says the state aid provides $900 per pupil per year, which is only 10% of the approximately $9,000 it costs to educate each Winchester student. He said, nevertheless, Winchester students have delivered impressive results. Peter Van Aken from the Planning Board, chairman of the Planning Board, said that, commented on the new part-time town planner coming on board for the Planning Board. And he said commented on the master plan is being created with 3 parts concentrating on neighborhoods, economic development, and fiscal impacts of planning changes. And finally, we heard, just before the end, we heard from Leo Roach, chairman of the library trustees, who thanked the town for the support in restoring library hours and commented the library had grown 50% in the last 5 years. We also heard from David Mortensen from Committee on Government Regulations just before the break. It's going to be a very busy schedule here on town meeting. We don't have graphics tonight, so I'm just going to briefly go down through the articles. We have the next article, Article 2, coming up, is to declare vacant seats of town meeting members who have failed to attend 1/2 or more of the total sessions during fiscal year '06. Article 3 is our first zoning article. That is regarding the Immaculate Conception property on North Main Street. Article 4 addresses some off-street parking regulations. Article 5 is to amend a zoning bylaw to the GBD2 and GBD3 zoning areas, which would affect North Main Street. The Article 6 is to create an attached residential cluster development overlay district, and Article 7 is to rezone land at 223 to 225 Cambridge Street, known familiarly as the Pansy Patch, Purcell's property. Article 8, dealing with another one other remaining farm section of Winchester, the Lock Hamilton Farm, to authorize the purchase of all or a portion. We understand that is going to be indefinitely postponed. Article 9 is to accept provisions of Mass General Law for something called the Massachusetts Community Preservation Act, which would allow a town to put a fee on real estate transfers and use that fund for community preservation projects such as purchasing open space. Article 10 is the amending and raise and appropriate funds to supplement the school department budget. Article 11, to hear a report of the Personnel Board. Article 12, to amend the water and sewer rates. Article 13, to hear and act on the report of the Capital Planning Committee. Article 14, for requests for reconstructing and making extraordinary repairs to school buildings. Article 15 deals with asbestos abatement at the Lynch School and the Public Safety Building. Article 16, and there were drawings of this in the lobby, was to appropriate a sum of money for the design of a new Veterans Memorial. Article 17, to appropriate a sum of money for preparing a school building master plan. Article 18, for restoring the landfill cap at the town's transfer station. And Article 19 and Articles 19, 20, and 21, housekeeping articles to clean up any budgets or hearings that need to be made. And that's where we stand right now. We are finished Article 1 and moving on to Article 2 immediately after the break, which town meeting should resume in about 4 minutes from now. So we invite you to stand by, and we'll have a report at the end of tonight's session.
Did what? Okay, good. Thank you. He's looking to postpone to some other night. But you see, what you see is the problem. He puts the motion on, he's got 5 minutes. So, I mean, and then you make your judgment.
sie fressen und Friede tot, mörisieren die Brut, ihnen Totenschrein und sage meine Lieder hinein. O träumt dich die Liebe, sagen hinzu. Auf dem Grabe der Liebe, wer spielt leider Lohn, da blüht der Fond, da blüht man den ab, doch mir blüht nun, wer ihn sät, wer ihn grab, wer ihn sät, wer ihn grab. Sind schon die Lieder, die heiß so wird, in ein Lavasturm, der die Welt nah entflieht. Der Wogen steht außen diesem Niet, und rings vier blitzende Funken verstrahlt. Nun liegen sie stumm und totengleich, nun starben sie kaut und nebelbleich. Da aufs Neu die Atemglut sie belebt, wenn der liebe Geist eis über sie schwebt. Da aufs Neu die Atemglut sie belebt, wenn der liebe Geist eis über sie schwebt. Und der wie mein Herzen wie ohne Laut, der liebe Geist euch über sie taut, heißt, holt die Spur in deine Hand. Du süßes Lieb, du süßes Lieb im fernen Land, dann lässt sie Lieder Zauberbann, die blasen Buchstaben schau dich an, sie schauen die fliehend in schöne Aug und Füße mir weht Mund und Lieb. skaudan, Jelika kjovan, a bujan nosir trovan. Che fone tu non devilunan e quella luna l'abbiamo vincinan. Aspetti signorina, le dirò con due parole chi son, chi son. Son poeta, Diego Zapaccio, scrivo e come vivo, vivo. In poetania vieta, Schalonagan signoren, ordini me in da borden, e soglie per Himenen, e pecos in Maria. Lai non ignorian. Tuola mia fosielen, rumbando di suoi cieli, quell'altri occhi belli. Mengiat con voi puodan, e di miei sogni santin, e i miei sogni, tuo suo simile guard, mai fundo non m'accorda. Poiché m'acredo son,
Ladies and gentlemen, we have an announcement that Mel Kleckner asked me to make, that in honor of Veterans Day, the transfer station is going to be closed on Saturday, November 11th. It will, however, be open Friday from 8 to 4 and Sunday for leaves only from 12 to 4. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we turn now to Article 2 to see if the town meeting acting under Article 2, Section 2.5 of the Winchester Home Rule Charter decides to whether or not to vacate the seats of certain town meeting members because of failure to come to the meetings. And the chair recognizes Mr. Cullen from the Committee on Rules. Yes, sir. And it's moved and seconded that further consideration of Article 2 be indefinitely postponed. Mr. Cullen.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, Board of Selectmen, town meeting members. This is my annual opportunity to attempt to strike fear into the hearts of all the town meeting members to meet the attendance requirements, or otherwise you'll have to face the wrath of the Rules Committee. I've noticed that in a couple of instances I've seen Article 2 referred to as a procedural motion, and I have to tell you the Rules Committee views it as anything but that. We had 4 meetings this year to try and resolve a number of issues, and I'm pleased to say that we finally got to the point where we did so and can now recommend the indefinite postponement. But every year it seems to be a close call. So I want to remind everyone that the charter requires town meeting members to attend more than 50%. It's worded a little differently, but that's what it means. Attend more than 50% of all the sessions. Now, we had an interesting case last spring where there were 2 sessions on May 22nd, a regular and a special, and then 3 sessions on June 19th, a regular and 2 specials. Well, they all count. And unfortunately, people who weren't able to attend for one reason or another either of those dates, they got either doubly or triply hit, and that caused a number of town meeting members to not meet their requirement for the year. So the Rules Committee does get a report on all the town meeting members from the town clerk's office, and I'd like to thank the town clerk and her office for supplying us with all that information and also sending out and receiving all the letters that we sent. So we sent letters to all of the, in this case, 17 members who failed to meet the requirements last year, asking for their explanations and essentially a promise of a good faith attempt to make their attendance requirements in this coming year. And it took 2 letters in some cases to get a response, but we finally did. And what ended up was 2 members chose to resign, and that's why Precincts 1 and Precincts 2 were caucusing to replace those 2 members earlier this evening. And the Rules Committee accepted the explanations of the other 15 members. Now, the Rules Committee was kind of lenient this year because of the number of people that were affected by the multiple special sessions, but now you're all on fair warning that we may not be quite as lenient next year. Also, I just do want to point out a statistic that we checked, that there seems to be a general trend. I know both in the fall and the spring last year, and I suspect if we went back to previous years, it'd be true also, that attendance is highest on the first night of a session of town meeting, and then it methodically and monotonically goes down. Both at the fall and spring town meetings last year, we had 91% on opening night, and we were in the 70s by the time we reached the end. So I just do want to encourage people to try and keep the attendance up as we go throughout the fall and then next year the spring session. And I think I'd just like to leave you with the immortal words of Woody Allen, who said that 90% of success in life is showing up. So please, show up.
Thank you very much. Question? Sort of a mixed response. I know what that sounds like. It's moved and seconded that Article 2 be indefinitely postponed. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. We turn now to Article 3 to see if the town will vote to amend the Winchester zoning bylaw by changing the so-called Immaculate Conception property from an SCI Conservancy Institutional District to a General Business District, GBD 3.0. And ladies and gentlemen, you have a revised motion as a handout tonight. It's entitled Article 3, Revised Motion. And I would ask you to turn to page 3 of that before I place the motion. There is a minor correction to that. It's on page 3 of that. You can see at the bottom it says 2/3 vote required for passage. That is correct. But above that, in the paragraph right before that, it says, said parcel shall be subject to a development agreement between the Winchester Board of Selectmen and Creative Corner LLC, and it says dated November 2006. Draw a line through that phrase. It now, so the motion, the end of the motion reads as follows. Said parcel shall be subject to a development agreement between the Winchester Board of Selectmen and Creative Corner LLC, semicolon. The Board of Selectmen is authorized to execute an agreement in substantially the same form as approved by the Board of Selectmen on October 30th, 2006. The Selectmen actually did approve that, and so that just makes it consistent. It'll be dated whenever they do it, assuming that you pass the zoning. And just a little editorial note, the paragraph below that where it says Article 2 background, that should say Article 3 background. That's Mr. Toogood. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's moved and seconded and that's on page 2, to amend the Winchester zoning bylaw and the map incorporated therein by changing the zoning district, and then it reads just like it is in the motion there. It's a long motion because it includes the definition of the 2 parcels. And what this motion does, it's moved and seconded that we rezone this property to GDB 3.0, and in accordance with a development agreement, a copy of which you have in draft before you as part of this handout. And the way for new town meeting members, the way this debate goes, and it's because it's a zoning article, we ask the proponents to speak first. They may have 1 to some number of people making their presentation, and the first speaker gets 10 minutes, and the next speakers get 5 each. And then when they finish their presentation to you, we call on the planning board right away to give their recommendation. And then in this case, because there is a development agreement that may or may not have financial implications to the town, we will immediately ask the Finance Committee for a recommendation. And in that fashion, before debate begins, all of the town meeting members have the advantage of having heard from the proponents, the Planning Board, and the Finance Committee. And then we open it up for debate. And that includes, obviously, all the town meeting members and any of the Winchester citizens that are here. And so I recognize Mr. Wayne Perkins is the primary proponent. Yes, sir.
Mr. Moderator, members of the boards, committees, town meeting members, and fellow Winchester residents. My name is Wayne Perkins. I am one of the founders of Creative Corner Children's Learning Center and 11 Sheridan Circle in Winchester, and one of the owners of the former Immaculate Conception Parish properties. I'm here with my partner, both at Creative Corner and the purchase of the Immaculate Conception properties. Tom Kelleher and I have been residents for 30 years of Winchester. Our children have gone through the schools. 7 years ago, we started Creative Corner. And our mission at that time, and it continues to be, to provide the highest child care and teaching to Winchester's children aged 6 weeks to 6 years. In furtherance of that mission, we rented the Immaculate Conception School, the former Immaculate Conception School, which had basically been vacant since 1974 as a school. We rehabbed and updated the school facility to a state-of-the-art facility that we're very proud of. We then went out and hired what we consider to be one of the finest staffs in Massachusetts. And not knowing too much about child care at the time, we took a poll and found out what teachers made, and we raised that about $4,000, and we have hired some of the finest staff in Massachusetts. We then developed and continue to develop and upgrade one of the finest curriculums in the state. As sort of proof of that excellence, we are monitored on a regular basis by licensors from the Massachusetts Department of Early Education and Care, and they come through on a regular basis seeing our school. We have been told on numerous occasions that we are the finest school that they have been in their careers with the department. We're very, very proud of that. We just were granted the National Association of the Education of Young Children's certification, which is held by only 8% of the child care centers in the United States. We work on a weekly basis with the Winchester School Department. We get involved with early developmental issues and programs helping children and interacting with the Lynch School. And most importantly, Creative Corner's excellence has been recognized by the parents of those children who have come to the school. When we started the school, we did a lot of marketing and what have you, and we do very little marketing now. Why? Because word of mouth is the best marketing that we have. We opened the school with 5 employees and 13 children. The previous speaker told about growth and enrollment. We now serve 190 parents, families. There's, at any given day, 150 children at Creative Corner. We have a waiting list for infants at Creative Corner. And we are very, very proud of Creative Corner. We have interacted with our neighbors for the last 7 years with very little problems at all. We've had a wonderful, wonderful working relationship. We've worked with them with parking, we've worked with them with traffic and other issues, and we have basically had no problems whatsoever. As we all know, unfortunately, in 2004, in the spring of 2004, the Archdiocese decided to close a number of schools, a number of parishes. Tom and I not only own the school, but we're parishioner members. Tom's mother was buried out of Immaculate Conception Parish, so we had a much stronger bond than many other people. I sat on the committee that revisited whether or not one of the parishes in Winchester should close. Father Foley was the chief spokesperson, I was the second spokesperson. Prior to that meeting, Tom and I approached the Archdiocese and indicated we would sign an additional lease for 15 years or up to 25 years to save the parish. All three parishes were in the black, particularly Immaculate Conception with our rent. That wasn't to be. They voted to close the parish. They closed it in November of 2004, and to be frank with you, Tom and I started looking for another location and to see where we may or may not be able to get another location. The fact of the matter is there weren't any other locations. We then decided that we would try to put a bid in to buy the parish. We felt we couldn't afford to buy the parish, but we had such a gem and such a community asset that we were going to do everything we could do to protect it. We put a bid in. We won the bid. The property was put up in a one-lot sale. You had to buy everything: the church, the school, the rectory, the convent, the parish center, and the parking lot. We won the bid and passed on the property last August. We are not developers. We were not developers then. We're not developers now. Our sole reason for buying it was to preserve and protect Creative Corner in Winchester, Massachusetts. Our thought process was simple. We were going to then turn around and try to sell some of the property to recoup the money that we spent. And that's the process we went on. This is just showing you some of the classrooms. Jeff, if you could continue. Okay, continue to the next one. That's our indoor. We have a 2,100 square foot indoor area, play area. One more. We have a nice road race in there. So we bought the property. We then started in January with a transparent process to sit down with our neighbors, some interested other community leaders, the planning board, Board of Selectmen, the Housing Partnership, and the Historical Society Commission to look at what we may or may not do in this area. Jeff, if you could give us the next slide. Just to give you a brief, if some of you are not familiar with the piece of property we're dealing with. This is the parking lot at Immaculate Conception Parish, looking south from Sheridan Circle down. Can we have the next one, please? This is the parking lot looking north. The rectory's over on the right-hand side, convent's in the middle. The yellow building in the back is the parish center, and you can't see it, but we have a playground beside the parish center. The next one? Okay. That's a close-up of the parish center and the convent. I'd like to just take note that there's the parking behind the convent and there's parking up behind the parish center. Thank you. We have the rectory. Okay. This is the rectory looking from Sheridan Circle. And can we have the next one, please? And this is the front of the rectory, which is it sits on Main Street in the corner of Sheridan Circle. Thank you. In our discussions with the concerned parties, we found out that there was a concern to retain the residential nature of the neighborhood. Density was a big issue. Location of our parking was a big issue. Historical preservation was a big issue. No one wanted a 40B development. The town desired a development agreement, and the town and the neighbors wanted our parking shielded to the best degree we could from the residential aspect of the neighborhood, and there was affording housing a component. Jeff, if you could give me the next one. We proposed in the spring town meeting to rezone the whole parking lot and take down the rectory, which is here, and to put our parking lot here. This is the school. The school is about 20,000 square feet, and we have the church here. We have made a decision to keep the church and use any future expansion into the church. In discussing things with our neighbors, they told us they did not want the parking up here because the neighbors on Watson Place and on Sheridan Circle felt they needed a buffer and it would be infiltrating the neighborhood and taking away from the residential neighborhood of it. We agreed at that time to put 2 single-family dwellings here to move our parking lot more or less in this area. We listened to our neighbors and some other concerned citizens and the Historical Commission, and they were in favor of keeping the rectory and keeping the rectory with a historical covenant to keep the facade of the rectory. We agreed to do that. We agreed to put our parking here, and at that time, we had suggested putting 30 condominium units, then we were down to 26, and then we had 18 condominium units here. So when we came into town meeting in the spring, this plan was pushed aside, and the planning board come forth with a plan that was 18 condominiums in this area, the 2 single-family lots up here, our parking in this general vicinity, and save the rectory with a facade and with a affordable housing component. There was a glitch in our plan, and we tabled it at the last town meeting. Mr. Moderator, I have 1 more minute.
How many?
1.
Just one?
That's
It's
all.
moved and seconded. The speaker's time be extended 1 minute. All
Thank
those in favor, please say aye.
Thank you. What has happened since spring town meeting to bring us here today? Jeff, could you put the new plan on? Okay. We have decided, rather than having 18 condominium units in this area, that we would have 3 1 or 2 family house lots, retain the rectory, and we would have, playground may not go there, by the way, but this would be our parking in here, and this would be this would be an area we'd use for probably for playground. Playground could be someplace else, and maintain the 2 lots, have the historical facade and a housing component. We did this because we felt, in retrospect, that with the 1021 potential 48 condominiums coming on the other side of the street, which most of you are aware of, we just felt the density may very well be too much for our neighbors and for our neighborhood. We're not hitting and running. We're going to be there for ages. And we met with our neighbors. We had a long discussion with a number of them, and we came to the conclusion it would be in the best interest of the neighborhood, the best interest of Creative Corner, and the best interest of the town to leave the 18 condominium units and replace them with 3 1 or 2 family lots. So that's the plan that we have, and we would respectfully request that you vote favorably on it. We think it's in everyone's best interest, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. May we have a recommendation from the planning board? Mr. Grenzebach.
Thank you. Mr. Moderator, town meeting members. Do you have the... Okay, here. Okay. Thank you. The planning board, let's see if I got the... Planning board recommends favorable action on Article 3 with the condition of the development agreements put in place. It's our opinion that proposed uses and development are consistent with the zoning, and it represents a reasonable balance among the interests of the owners, the neighborhoods, and the town. And it has been a long discussion to get there. If you had any question about where the Immaculate Conception property is, we'll take care of that this evening. Out in red line, that is the sort of an aerial view of the things. The school is here. The areas we're talking about rezoning is down in here with the exception of the center piece there. So let me give you another view of it. This is the sort of plan view of the area. You can see the school here going clockwise. This is the old hall, the convent, the rectory. This is what is now parking spaces along Main Street there. What the proponents have asked to do is asked us to recommend rezoning. We were talking about rezoning the 2 lots against Watson Place there to make them single-family housing units, maintain the rectory, and rezone these lots 3, 4, and 5 to be used as either single-family or 2-family units as it's to be developed. The Creative Corner will retain this center part as a parking lot and retain this area as a tot lot or playground for the future one time. So, many people asked us about the development agreement. This is a legal agreement between the town and the owners. Mr. Haley will answer detailed questions if you like. But the key provisions are as follows. It basically creates, as we showed on the map, 2 single-family houses on Watson Place, and it provides for a rezoning of those lots to RG 6.5, which is the residential general zoning that's consistent with the surrounding areas, and that will happen as soon as they build the parking lot and then move to the town meeting to change that. It places the Creative Corner parking in the middle of the site, away from both Watson Place and Main Street, and buffers it from both sides there. It retains the former rectory building, restricts development along Main Street to, as I said, the single or the 2-family houses, provides for cash contributions to the Affordable Housing Fund, and continues the tax payments to the town based on the assessed value of the property. These were all issues that have been discussed between the town, the owners, and the neighborhood extensively. The development agreement represents a legal agreement that attaches to the rezoning. What has happened is, and will happen, is that the owners, the town, and the neighborhood will have negotiated that development agreement. You have copies of that in your materials tonight and read it. The town meeting tonight will review, and if it chooses to approve the zoning change and the development agreement, and at that point, the owners in the town will then sign the development agreement, and that development agreement is then attached to the property deed and registered. The conditions of that development agreement are binding on both the current and the future owners and development of this property, and if either the owners or the town fail to live up to their responsibilities under this development agreement, basically to carry out the plans we're talking here and put it up as developed and as proposed, then you can go to court for the enforcement of that. So it provides both the town and the owners with assurance that what's being discussed tonight, what's being reviewed and approved by town meeting tonight, will in fact be carried out. We've looked at the whole set of issues surrounding Immaculate Conception reuse there for some time. In general, what we have found that rezoning to GBD3 with the restrictive development agreement in place is appropriate. It meets the neighborhood's desire for single-family and 2-family houses, and that's consistent with the surrounding neighborhoods. It provides the parking again in the middle. It's buffered, retains the rectory building, the front of which is an architecturally significant building, and for reuse, it can be reused either as housing, as 2 condominiums, or it can be reused as an office space or professional development. This is in GBD3. You are not permitted to put in retail operations or car washes or such like that. So this would be a professional office building, something like that. And it maintains the tax-paying business, which employs about 45 people, many of them Winchester residents, and of course serves, as Wayne was talking earlier, about 200 children in that area. And again, it contributes to the plan. So in summary, after much discussion and much work on this project, the Planning Board recommends that you go ahead with this. The single condition that we would like to recommend is that in the course of bringing the details before the Zoning Board of Appeals, we would like the owners to address the issue of traffic and parking management. It works reasonably well, but we heard consistent concerns from the neighbors about people, how they park to drop off kids, how people move in and out of the areas. After looking at it at some length, we believe that these are issues that can be resolved by careful re-engineering, traffic engineering, signing, striping, and some focused enforcement in that area. And we recommend that people take a close look at that, to look at the management of school drop-off, traffic and parking, neighborhood traffic, and the off-street parking areas. Thanks, sir.
Thank you very much. May we hear from the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends favorable action. The parcels are to be developed so that there's less impact on the town services and neighbors than otherwise would have if we had not had a development agreement. The net impact is relatively small. The ranges from a small net gain to a small net loss, depending on the number of students involved in the scenarios. But we do note that the financials are just one of the many factors that you need to consider in this article. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I open it up for discussion, can I appoint some tellers, because this requires a two-thirds vote? Mr. Leland, Mr. Moore, Mr. Looney, and Mr. O'Leary. Would you stand up, raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear to faithfully perform your duties as tellers to this town meeting, so help you God? Thank you very much. Open for questions, comments. Yes, sir. Mr. Serbier.
Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, I'm John Serbier, chairman of the Winchester Housing Partnership Board. Just as a quick reminder, the Housing Partnership Board was created by town meeting to advise both town meeting and other town boards on issues broadly related to affordable housing for middle and moderate income families, as well as low and very low income families, and for seniors, those wishing to downsize. The Winchester Housing Partnership Board voted unanimously to support Article 3 and the associated development agreement. One of the questions that has come up and has been asked is whether on the affordable housing provision it would have been possible to designate one of the 8 to 10 units as an affordable unit as opposed to a cash payment. We had a number of discussions with Mr. Kelleher and Mr. Perkins, their lawyer, and with Mr. Haley, and concluded that there were a number of factors that made that not a possible or a practical alternative on that. And so while we would always like units, we think in this particular case the cash payment is in fact an acceptable and a good way to go, and represents a very important and significant contribution that they're willing to make. The 5% figure that's included in the development agreement is consistent with the 5% figure that's included or that's referenced in the independent elderly housing overlay district. So there's some consistent with the existing zoning bylaws. So we would urge support of this article. Thank you.
Further on the question? Are you ready for the question? I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Good evening, town meeting members. Thank you for listening to the concerns of this neighborhood. I'm a resident of Sheridan Circle, which is the neighborhood directly abutting the IMC property. My name is John Gibolo. And what you see on the screen right now is an aerial view of our neighborhood.
They're having trouble hearing you up back.
I'm sorry. What you see on the screen right now is an aerial view of our neighborhood. And you can see the church is labeled 1021 Main Street, which is the proposed 48-unit development, is labeled. And I'd ask you to look at that photo and look at the character, the scale of what you see there. And I'd also ask you, if you had to pick out the anomalies or the things that are out of character with the neighborhood, I'd ask what might they be, and if I could. Excuse me, how does this? Just this?
You point it straight at. There you go.
I would say that the anomalies are these two buildings here. One is 955 Main Street, which is an office building, a 4-story office building. The other is a transformer station, Verizon transformer station. And so I'd ask if you consider the scale and character of the neighborhood, I'd also ask you to consider the question, what is the primary purpose of zoning? And according to the 2004 Winchester Community Development Plan, a primary goal of zoning is to protect neighborhood character. And the scale and character of the Sheridan Circle neighborhood can be seen clearly in these aerial photos. The landscape is one of relatively low density and scale. The distinct outline of Russell Road as it joins Sheridan Circle on the opposite side of Main Street illustrates the residential fabric which the Immaculate Conception parcels are part of. And the anomaly, rather than the norm, of the two buildings I pointed out in the upper part of the photo. 95% of the direct abutters to the Immaculate Conception properties are zoned RG 6.5, 1 and 2 family zoning. Heading south along Main Street, a dramatic change in the landscape occurs. This is south of Swanton Street. Flat roofs, large buildings, expansive parking lots predominate. And despite this pedestrian, unfriendly landscape, punctuated by bland commercial buildings, never-ending curb cuts, this photo shows luxury apartments under construction across the street from a Jiffy Lube and a Burger King. And I would ask, is this the type of development that GBD zoning was meant to bring in the master plan? In the Central Business District, the transformation is complete, and the demand for real estate, the efficiency for having a commuter rail station, Winchester's public buildings and retail all within walking distance, lends some logic to this high density in a small town such as Winchester. Now ask yourself, what is the difference in scale and character between the last three photos, and what is the purpose of zoning? Is GBD3 zoning working for Winchester? Comparing several categories of density indicators such as minimum side yard, minimum rear yard, minimum percent open area, maximum building height, and distance between buildings, we see no reduction in density, but rather an increase in density when one goes from CBD to GBD3, Central Business District. The master plan in the village overlay districts, the goals as I understood them were, as you went further away down Main Street from the town center, the zoning would decrease in density from CBD to GBD1 to GBD2 to GBD3. Now compare the minimum rear yard, for instance, in the category of GBD3 and CBD. A larger rear yard is required in the Central Business District than in the less dense GBD3. So who are we relying on to give us the decreasing density? The goodwill of developers? Let's consider the current parcels. The owners purchased them under a zoning designation SCI. For those from the Winchester Hospital area, you had some industrial land that was recently converted to SCI. Folks from the Cheffalo Park District understand that designation, and folks from the Hamilton Farm also understand what that means. It's primarily for schools, conservation land, the Winchester Country Club. According to the chart, under SCI, the minimum percent open area is required to be 85%. For most of our homes in the RG or other residential district in town, we're required to have 70 to 75% open space. Under GBD3 for commercial buildings, however, there is no open space requirement. Now, how would you feel if a developer came into your residential neighborhood and purchased a lot, required to be 70% open space, subdivided it so that the house was one parcel and the remaining open space was another parcel, and then he asked for a zoning change to sell that open space? This is an example, and when I asked you, is GBD3 working, this is an example of what was built under the GBD3, or actually GBD2 zoning. Further down, Swanton Street, this is the lower right is the view, the entry view, when you exit these luxury apartments. Next photo shows some of the issues and some of the things I would ask you when you answer that question, is GBD3 zoning working, and what type of housing is being provided under this designation. I point out something from our own bylaws from the cluster, residential cluster development, and it states, all buildings in this zoning designation, residential cluster, shall be sited to ensure adequate light and air exposures to the rooms within, and impervious site coverage, meaning non-paved parking, will be 40% of the overlay district. In other words, there's a requirement for 40% open, unpaved space. Under GBD3, there is no requirement. Parking lots are considered open space. How does this happen? I would ask, could I have 5 more minutes?
It's moved and seconded. The speaker's time be extended 5 minutes. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? No. The ayes have it.
So I asked, how does this happen if we ask for light and air for some buildings, but in a building under GBD3, the zoning asks you to make a choice and says, we're going to build a building 5 to 10 feet off of Main Street because the zoning actually requires that. It doesn't give you the option. It says you have to put it on Main Street. And then puts below-grade apartments, and then it says to people, well, we want to give you light and air. However, you have to make a choice. Do you want privacy or light and air? Because you can't have both. And if you notice driving by this building, I've yet to see the first floor shades pulled. Another thing that the GBD3 was encouraging was pedestrian-friendly neighborhood streetscapes. And I would ask, what pedestrian activity are we asking for in this zoning? Peeping Toms? Some of the allowable uses in the general business district are outdoor commercial parking lot for trucks and buses or construction vehicles, electric transformer stations, office buildings, medical and dental labs, non-medical dental labs. GBT zoning allows uses which are not compatible with the homes. The photo on the bottom shows a transformer station. I think most people in this room, using their common sense, would say, I don't want to live across from that. Well, under GBD3 zoning, that can be built next to your house with no buffer, no fence, no setback requirement. GBT creates unsafe conditions for children in condos by allowing condominiums to exist side by side with office buildings, transformer stations, bus depots, etc. It's a poorly crafted zoning designation which requires further revisions, as evidenced by the extensive deed restrictions in the current proposal before you. GBD3 zoning creates unsafe conditions for children because it has no requirement for green spaces or buffers between office and residential uses. I experienced this firsthand when I visited the Deans, new owners of 921 Main Street condos, as we were discussing why they had moved to Winchester and the fact that their son and daughter-in-law and their family owned a condo next door. It became apparent that high-density condos were not their first choice for housing. They told me that they would have much preferred to have purchased two homes side by side, where the grandparents could be close to their daughter, her husband, and her two children. Now, I had the pleasure of meeting their neighbors, also young couples with two children each, and while visiting, saw a young lady and her two children had come to visit her sister with her two children. Quickly doing the math, I realized that on a typical Friday afternoon, there were 8 children in 4 units, not exactly the picture of young singles and 55-plus empty nesters that the planning board envisioned when they promoted this new high-density housing. While leaving, standing outside the main entry to these apartments and chatting with the dean's two children, or with the deans and 2 of the children were playing in the pavement, a car suddenly pulled out of the office parking lot and raced toward the Main Street curb cut. The mother, ever alert, quickly pulled her children out of harm's way. And while the driver was acting irresponsibly, I wondered how many of us are instinctively trained to look for children in an office parking lot. I wondered how the town might defend itself in a lawsuit if a child was killed in one of these poorly planned condominium complexes. When homes and businesses are both located in GBD3 zoning, no setbacks or buffer are required between commercial parking and homes. Here's an example of the corner of Sheridan and Main Street. As you can see, the home in the background is on the Woburn side. The home on the left, fortunately, is in an RG zone, and it does require a buffer when you're abutting an adjacent zone. So thank God for that RG zoning that was in place. GBD zoning allows a scale and density more appropriate to Somerville than Winchester. Average lot size in Somerville is 0.06 acres. Average lot size in Winchester and Woburn, 0.30 acres. GBD3 zoning results in substandard housing, and it forces families to make a choice between good housing and good schools. Developers will not choose to build low-density housing or provide play areas for children if the bottom line is dollars and the zoning regulations allow high density. The reasons are as old as human nature itself, and when these developers go home to their 3/4-acre landscape lots, the residents of our condos will have to choose between forcing their children to stay indoors or sending them out to improvised playgrounds on Main Street or office parking lots. GBD3 zoning will bring families that will make the trade-off to live in substandard housing, but quickly leave when the benefits of the schools no longer compels them to stay. It will bring a continuous stream of short-term tenants who have no vested interest in the neighborhood, and after investors purchase many of these units, they will become rental properties, as have the condos at 921 Main Street. 2 years, 4 of the 8 units remained unsold. The other 4 are now rental properties. GBD3 zoning devalues the surrounding homes, lowers property values, and lower property values for our neighborhood mean lower tax revenues for Winchester. And who do you think is going to make up the difference? GBD3 will bring a disproportionate number of children into the school system. It's a fact that Winchester has the best public schools, or some of the best in the state. It's also a fact that people who have traditionally purchased home.
Time is up, sir. No, sir. You only had, you got an extension, so you have to wrap it up.
If I could ask for 2 more minutes?
No, just wrap it up.
I will wrap it up.
No more additional slides. I mean, just tell us what you'd like us to vote on, and
I am recommending that the vote be in favor of the developer's proposal here tonight, but I also would ask you to consider the three proposals on the table as a package, Articles 3, 4, and 5, because they are trying to accomplish the same goal. While we were at a Zoning Board of Appeals meeting 2 weeks ago, on Tuesday night, we were told that it would be grandfathered. I'm trying to wrap it up.
you're not making it. You'll have a chance to speak on 4 and 5 when it comes up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Healy. Haley, sorry. I'm home. Mr. Haley.
Mr. Lieutenant Moderator.
Well taken. Your time is up.
Please let Christie know that all the members of the town meeting know what he means when he speaks about the difficulty of speaking truth to power. The Board of Selectmen recommends favorable passage of Article 3 by a vote of 4 to 0. Mr. Johnson abstained from voting because he's the owner of an abutting property. We believe that the motion, as incorporating the development agreement, identifies and addresses each of the 4 concerns of the neighborhood and the various town boards, reduces density, preserves the rectory, provides for appropriate parking placement, and provides for an appropriate affordable housing. The Board of Selectmen would especially like to thank the neighbors who participated in this process. John, who spoke to us thoroughly about GBD3, has been an impassioned advocate for the neighborhood, as have many others. Those meetings and their input informed our actions in what we did and what we hope that we achieved in carrying out the development agreement. We'd also like to express our appreciation to the owners who have been patient, diligent, and extremely responsive to the concerns not only of their constituents in the school, but the concerns of their fellow neighbors. From our perspective at Board of Selectmen, the process, although lengthy, has been successful. It is our honest and true belief that we are successful only when, as a board and as a government, we carry out the virtue of solidarity, and we act as a government as if the value of each of our lives and our experiences is intrinsically related to the value of every other neighbor's experience. We hope that we've been responsive to North Main Street and to the owners as well. We would ask for your support of Article 3.
Thank you, Mr. Haley. Further on the question, you ready for the question? Mrs. Schleicher. Then I sense we're ready to vote.
Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, I am very pleased to be able to stand before you tonight and ask you for your support of this agreement and this rezoning. As you know, from last spring, I was on direct opposite side of the fence regarding going forward with this development. But I want to applaud and thank Mr. Kelleher and Mr. Perkins for their willingness to work with a neighborhood and to look for reasonable development that works for a neighborhood, works for the town, and as well works for their business. We applaud that effort in the North End. They have achieved a density of about 8.8 units per acre. We see 2 parking spaces per unit, and we see an historic preservation for the rectory. This is the kind of development we like to see in Winchester, and I express my gratitude to Mr. Perkins and Mr. Kelleher for their willingness to work with us.
Thank you very much. Are you ready, ladies and gentlemen, for the question? One last question, way up back, on the side, I'm sorry. State your name, sir. I can't see who it is.
Is this on? Yes,
Yep.
There we go. My name is Nat Brooks. It's just a question I want to be clear on what we're voting on. Articles 4 and 5 contemplate changes to the definition to one of the zones involved here, as I understand it. I just wanted to be sure that the development agreement would still hold if those pass or do not pass. Could someone clarify that for me?
Yes, sir. The question is, we have 2 other articles, Article 4, which changes some of the parking requirements, and Article 5, if it was to pass, changes the density. And the gentleman's question is, if either one of those passed, would they affect the development agreement? That has been discussed at some length, and my understanding is the answer is no.
That is correct.
Will not affect it, regardless of what happens on 4 and 5. Further on the question, are you ready for the question? This is a zoning question and requires a two-thirds vote, which will require counting. I will try a voice vote, and if it's unanimous, we can avoid the count. All those in favor of the main motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and the chair declares that it's unanimous. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, just a comment on the process here. Many of you, particularly those at home, don't recognize the amount of work that has gone into over the last 6 months on this project, not only by the owners, but by the planning board, the Board of Selectmen, the Finance Committee in evaluating it, and it was really a sort of a model process that I think that the town should document well, because it really showed that you can come out with something and pay attention to the neighborhood, pay attention to what's good for Winchester, and I think everybody, it's very unusual on such a controversial project in the beginning that we get a unanimous vote, particularly by all the boards. So on behalf of the town meeting, we thank you for that. Okay, that brings us to Article 4. Article 4 is the main proponents is Margaret Schleicher and David Arrico, if they want to come down front. We have a little housekeeping here to do, ladies and gentlemen, and let me see if I can take care of that before Mr. Arrico's presentation. I reviewed this with him, and he agrees that the changes we're going to make are correct. If you would look at your Article 4 motion, the Article 4 motion, if everybody has it, there is a mistake which I consider to be more like a Scrivener's error that needs to be fixed in case this motion should pass. And if you look in the article itself, you see it says, to see if the town will vote to amend the Town of Winchester zoning bylaw as follows. And then it has a list of sections, and it's section 4.4, number 2, two-family dwelling, and number 4, group garden house, and 5A, where it says business/residential. It should have said business/residential/combination. And down in the table of off-street parking requirements, under the use section 5A, it says in the motion and in the article, business/residential, and it should have said business/residential/combination. And under the zoning district, where it says GBD2/GBD3, the word combination underneath there should be eliminated. And what happened is, if you look at the zoning book, when you got to that table, there happened to be a page break, and the proponents incorrectly included the word combination in the zoning district as opposed to the type of use. And so I want to correct that. So it's moved and seconded. We have the main motion, which you have before you. It's moved and seconded. The town will vote to amend the zoning bylaw. And I want to make an amendment, and I ask your indulgence in this. It'll save time and protect our zoning book from being incorrectly modified if it passes. So it's moved and seconded that the main motion be amended by adding the word /combination in the definition under section 5A and modifying the table in the motion under 5A so that the type of use reads business residential /combination, and the zoning district reads only GBD2/GBD3. All those in favor with that technical correction, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. Mr. Arrico on the main motion as amended.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. We had talked earlier about combining both articles.
Yes, Mr. Arrico has asked, and it's appropriate that Article 4 and 5, he would like to discuss the ramifications of both of those because they are parallel motions. One, Article 4 changes the number of spaces per dwelling unit, and the Article 5 changes the overall density to no more than 10 dwelling units per acre. We are going to allow discussion on both of those articles under the Article 4, but we'll vote Article 5 separately. Mr. Rico.
Mr. Moderator, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Before I begin, I just wanted to make a quick statement. On behalf of myself and my family, all the folks in this room, and the citizens of Winchester, words cannot express how proud we are to know how John Sullivan has represented the town of Winchester in his quest to become the next Lieutenant Governor of the Commonwealth of Mass.
Thank you. You still only get 10 minutes. Thank you, David.
Mr. Moderator. My name is David Arico. I'm a lifelong resident of Winchester, current member of the Board of Assessors, a former member of the Finance Committee, former town meeting member for 10 years, and I have 20 years' experience in the real estate development and advisory business. And you know, I put together my script here, but one thing that really hit me was, as we approved unanimously, Article 3 was how everybody really accepted that concept, accepted that plan. Everybody loves the plan. It's a great plan. The Selectmen, Finance Committee, Planning Board, Affordable Housing, everybody recognizes that as a reasonable development. That's what we're looking for up and down Main Street. From Skillings to the Woburn line, that's what we want. I got involved with this over the summer when originally the Immaculate Conception plan was for approximately 26 units. We all know that at 907 Main Street, at 778 Main Street, and now with a proposal at 1021 Main Street, we are seeing extremely high-density residential development in the order of 21 to 28 units per acre. Something's wrong here, ladies and gentlemen. This is not Winchester. This is not the Winchester that I knew. Developers have figured out that you can get incredibly high density, upwards of 30 units an acre, without any requirements for affordable housing. The questions are, what are we as a town, and what do we want to be? There's approximately 15 acres of land in the GBD2 and the GBD3 district. The top view is GBD2, which goes from Skilling to Swanton, and then the bottom is GBD3, which goes from Swanton to the Woburn line. So we've got about 15 acres, and in my opinion, this will continue as a development process where land will be acquired, land will be assembled, and we will continue to have high-density residential development. We won't be, we're a town, and this density is the density of a city that you would see in Dorchester or Somerville or some other urban community. Ladies and gentlemen, the GBD2 and the GBD3 zones are the only zones in Winchester that allow residential that do not have a density cap. There needs to be a limit, and we need that limit now. GBD2 and GBD3 were created with a vision by planners. They were voted on by many boards, including the town meeting. It was a good vision to have mixed use, residential, commercial, ancillary residential above the commercial space. It didn't work out. It hasn't worked out. Developers have looked at this, a loophole where they can effectively build 100% residential without any commercial. What's the solution? The solution is a reasonable correction to these zones to institute a density cap of 10 units per acre. And again, currently there is no cap. Now mind you, the GBD2 and the GBD3 zone already has very liberal zoning guidelines. Open space, an FAR of 1, which in layman's terms means you can build a pretty darn big building. If we have a density cap, this will create a development environment where there will be a percentage of residential development and commercial. And I think that's more in keeping with the original intent of the planning board and the town meeting. What's also wrong with this? There is an impact on schools. We've been told that at 907 Main Street, 6 out of the 8 units have school-aged children. At 400 Cross Street, the 6 out of 18. It was brought up tonight that, well, maybe some of those kids go to a private school. Doesn't matter, it's a trend. This is showing you a trend that with condominiums built on Main Street, there will be school-aged children, and it will have an impact on the school systems, both individually, i.e. Lynch, and as a whole. Traffic. Look at Main Street now, and you have to agree that many times during the day, there is bottlenecks up and down Main Street. So you have to vision what will this be like in 3 to 5 years. All right, so you say, Rico, where'd you get the 10 units an acre? Well, there's a lot of things that I did to look at that. Let me see if I can get the... One of the things I looked at is the dreaded 40B. Now, with the dreaded 40B, I think everybody recognizes that that's a process where developers can get incredibly high density. Well, the density for condominium development through 40B is 8 units an acre. With GBD2 and GBD3, you can get upwards of 30 units an acre. I also looked at what is the density of the neighboring neighborhoods, the RG. It's 7 to 8 units per acre. So I like that transition of going, 7, 9, 10 versus 7, 9, 30. And that's when you run into problems where you have that much of a spread between 2 abutting neighborhoods. Also, in my 20 years experience in the development business, I've had the opportunity to look at many, many zoning bylaws. And I can tell you in a suburban town like Winchester, seeing 30 units of an acre on Main Street is unheard of. It's a city. I also talked to professionals. It was brought up tonight, we hired a town planner, Betsy Ware. She came out and made a recommendation regarding the density cap. It appears that the Arico petition is very reasonable proposal in terms of density allowed in this area. I talked to other professionals. In Winchester, we have the presidents of 2 regionally known land planning, land use engineering firms, Waterfield Design and Beal Associates. Both presidents live in Winchester. Both recommend the density cap. So the question, ladies and gentlemen, as it relates to the density cap, goes back to you, the guardians of what Winchester will look like. And I would argue that we can't wait. I have no doubt that the planning board is going to do what they said, which is we're going to get on this, and we're going to make some changes with the GBD2 and GBD3. We recognize that there's a big problem. But if you look at it as an example, the recommendations for GBD2 and GBD3 came out in 1997, but they weren't voted on until 2001, 4 years. These things take a lot of time, and we need a reasonable correction now to protect Main Street from Skillings to the Woburn line. Article 4, the parking. Parking now is 1.5 spaces per unit in the GBD2 and the GBD3 zone. That requirement was created in 1972. It just doesn't fit with the demographics of 2006. Data shows that while the U.S. population has increased over the past 30 years, 34%, the number of vehicles has gone up 71%. Parents, both parents working, teenagers driving, people owning second and third cars, a pickup truck, there's a problem. If you only have 1.5 parking spaces, where do the extra cars park? How about guest parking? In Winchester, we have a parking ban 4 months a year. On North Main Street, there are no public lots, so if these condominiums get built, they can't go park in a parking lot or a neighbor's lot. It's going to create a dysfunctional situation. The solution, in my opinion, ladies and gentlemen, is a reasonable correction to the GBD2 and 3 zones to require 2 spaces per unit. Good planning and zoning is tied to providing adequate off-street parking for residents in high-density developments. Again, I would respectfully ask that you vote yes for Articles 4 and 5 reasonable corrections to the GBD2 and GBD3 zones. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May we have a recommendation from the Planning Board? Mr. Grenzebach.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr.
ladies and
Grenzebach.
gentlemen, we do this right. We recommend favorable action on this as an interim measure. We were a bit ambivalent about it. We voted 2 in favor, 1 against, 1 abstention, and 1 absence. So we managed to cover it quite completely. Let me try to explain where we were going with this. First, I think it was our general conclusion that a requirement for 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit is consistent with current automobile ownership and parking requirements in the other residential zoning districts. And just we pulled out a few numbers. As of January 2005, Winchester had about 21,000 registered vehicles spread across 8,000 households and 700 businesses. Works out to about 2.5 cars per household or business. By and large, as a nation, we own more cars than we have drivers. People sort of have different cars for different uses, and we're trending in that direction. To allow 2 or require 2 in the GBD2 and GBD3 districts are not unreasonable. They're all fairly intensively developed areas, and so that would be consistent there. I would like, though, to make it clear, people have asked us in the public hearings, would passage of this parking requirement affect either the Immaculate Conception or the 1020 Main Street? And the answer is no in both cases. In the case of Immaculate Conception, their existing parking meets the 1.5 or 2 requirement. And in the case of the 1021 Main Street, they have already filed their paperwork for a subdivision under the old rules. Whatever we pass in town meeting now could not be applied retroactively to them. So as a tool to address that problem, this will not be effective. Finally, consideration of the sort of applying it now, we do not think that there will be a rush to build a huge number of new residential units in that area. The market for housing development across the Boston area and the nation has slowed considerably. Our best estimate from listening to the real estate market is we're looking for a good 18 months before it picks up again, and I think that gives us considerable time to sort of relook at the issue. The concerns we had about increasing it were first that increasing parking spaces will obviously increase the amount of impervious surface, stormwater runoff, and the risk of flooding, which is, I think Mr. Howley mentioned earlier, has caused considerable cost to the town. But in this case, we think that most of the area within the GBD2 and GBD3 districts has already been developed and would not make a significant difference. It will, if there were lots of open space and parking, green space, it would cut that down. But I think overall, while we were voting favorably to recommend this as a sort of an interim measure, our general sense is that our parking requirements are out of date, and that as part of the master plan, we should look at updating them. And in particular, we take an early start on looking at the parking requirements in this area. There are a much more sophisticated set of parking tools out there, parking requirements tools. Many towns now match the parking requirements to the number of bedrooms, so that as the number of bedrooms go up, you increase the parking. But if you're looking at 1 or 2 1 or 2 bedroom garden apartments, the number is cut back down. Many towns do shared parking arrangements. We will have an Immaculate Conception parking lot that is not used evenings and weekends. If we have parking in the area, many towns would set up a permit system to allow residents to park in those unused spots. Things. We need to move forward and address those issues quite quickly. But in conclusion, we are supporting this as a favorable action, but doing it as an interim measure that to reflect the changing auto ownership in the region. Now,
do you want to do?
I want to go on to the next one, I guess.
Yeah, you might as well.
Okay.
You might, just as a point of information, there's no such thing in the vote as an interim measure. Just for the purposes of clarification, we changed the law. The law has changed.
We were hedging.
Yep.
On Article 5, the proposal to cap or set an allowable density, the board, on the contrary, voted 4-0 with 1 absence against this one. We recommend unfavorable action on this. We are very sympathetic to the neighborhood's concerns about development along North Main Street, but in the opinion of the board, a density cap alone, which is what is recommended tonight, will not result in a better, more neighborhood-friendly development in that area. And in fact, we anticipate that the unintended consequences of passing a density cap alone will not help and may in fact harm the town. Very quickly, let's look at what we're talking about. We're really talking about rezoning a strip along Main Street from basically the Stop and Shop area at Skillings all the way up to Cross Street and the town line. One of our projects in the master plan will be develop some readable maps. This is not one of them, but you can see the you can see it's basically the light colored area up the center there. We're looking at the pieces. We have when that was put in place, and the town meeting voted that in just recently, rather 2000, the purpose of that was, in fact, to stop uncontrolled strip development up and down Main Street. And I think it has worked very effectively to that. The concept was to have intensive development, GBD, Central Business District development, from the Stop and Shop into the town area, but from Skillings on up to Swanton Street to allow both retail and automobile uses, but beyond that, beyond all the way up from Swanton up there, to basically focus on office uses, professional office uses, or residential development. Contrary to what you've heard this evening, it was the intent of the planning board to encourage garden-style apartments and encourage the use of townhouses in that. This is a main street, this is a main highway, this is a state highway. It is an appropriate location for higher density housing in this area. In doing that, to encourage that, we also thought there was opportunity to do combinations of retail and housing. The market has not moved that way, and we recognize that and think that that is something that should be re-examined. However, it was the intent of the planning board and the town meeting to move development out of the neighborhoods onto Main Street, keep it there where it can be supported, where there's better access on that. Very quickly, what the area we're talking about here, if you start at the top at Cross Street, all the areas in red, those zones and lots in those areas will be affected. Working down, there are about, we did a count earlier, there's about, I believe, some 30 lots that would be affected, 30 ownership properties that would be affected in the GBD3 area coming down, and about 47 or so lots in the area in the GBD2, which would be Swanton Street down to Skillings area. Those are the areas that would be affected. You can see coming down here all the way to the Stop and Shop area. What are we talking about? Well, we're talking about restricting dwelling unit density in this area. The problem with that is it is one of the few areas we have left in town where you can have some garden-style apartments and higher density. Almost all, as David pointed out, almost all of our other residential areas have caps on the density of them because, in fact, they're not suitable. They don't have good access to main streets and that. They're not as suitable for that. However, if you look at what we actually have in the town in residential density development, it ranges all the way from 2 up in the ledges, Lieutenant Governor resides, to up to the 40s and 50s.
In assisted living.
We won't, all the way up to the 50s. There's, in fact, if you cap it at 10, many of the apartments that we see out there would not exist in the town today. Some quick examples. The villages are 6 an acre. You get a very closely clustered design out there at 6 per acres, but you also get the Willows at 9 or 10. Those both would come under this thing, but you would not today get the 400 Cross Street, which exists at about 15 per acre, but it's certainly a very workable size development in Winchester things. And you would not, for example, be able to build anything like the Lewis Road apartments opposite the Epiphany Church on Church Street there, which works quite well in that neighborhood because it's fit well and designed in there. The point is that a single density cap will not necessarily get you the results you want. It will lower the residential density somewhat, but it won't, for example, control the number of bedrooms. You can get 10 units with 5 or 6 bedrooms in them and a lot of kids in school. In fact, what we would prefer to see is garden apartments with 1 or 2 bedrooms designed for empty nesters and rather fewer children in the school system. I think the unintended consequence of going down to 10 may be to pop up the school population and make it difficult to develop. Finally, I think there's also a concern in pushing it down to 10 that you would lose, the town would lose negotiating leverage with developers who wanted to build more development, and they might go directly to 40B, in which case we lose any negotiating leverage with those developers, and we may again not get the kind of development that we want in those neighborhoods. And finally, I think there is also the possibility that if someone were much exercised about this, they would come back and say what the town has done is effectively exclusionary zoning. It is said that putting it down to 10 All you can do is build single-family or two-family houses, which are quite expensive these days, and there's no room in this town for anybody with a young family who's not earning $150,000 or $200,000 a year, and no room, thank you, for anybody who's over 50 to retire. 2 minutes, sir.
It's moved and second. Speaker's time be extended 2 minutes. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries.
What we would like to do is ask you to vote against this measure, but we would also like at the same time to commit the planning board to turning the resources of the master planning consultant that we've just hired and the planning board and the other groups in town to basically take a look at the North Main Street area and rethink it. We will commit to, as we have with the Immaculate Conception and other groups, to work with the neighborhoods, businesses, and owners, take a very close look at the real estate market trends and figure out if there is any remaining interest in retail use up there, to do that. Perhaps not. If not, let us change it. We would like to rethink the GBD2, the GBD3, and the Village Center Overlay District regulations, develop a new vision for Main Street, and come back to the town meeting with a coherent set of proposals that will work. So finally, we recommend unfavorable action on this with a commitment on the part of the planning board to move forward and address these issues and make sure that we both retain the opportunity to do housing and create neighborhoods that are friendly to live in, both for the people in them and the people beside them. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. If you're ready for the question, you must have plenty of people up there. Yeah, Mr. Murray, and then the gentleman in the red shirt. Oh, Mr. Connery. I saw Mr. Murray, too, so I called him, but that's fine. You're first. Mr. Connery.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of town meeting, for having the opportunity to discuss this with you this evening. I will, for the sake of consistency here, talk about Articles 4 and Articles 5. Article 4, of course, deals with the parking issue. And there's just a couple of things I'd like to bring to your attention as you deliberate on this evening. One is the issue of consistency. There's no question that everybody needs parking spaces. There's no question that we all use them. They can be a convenience or they can be an aggravation depending on where you are at what time. But it goes to the point more than anything else that parking relates to the individual land use. We've heard this evening, and I think it's absolutely true, that there's a lot of vehicles in Winchester, probably as many vehicles as there are people. But the real analysis that one has to ask is, where do those vehicles come from? Currently in Winchester, we have a standard that relates parking to unit. So essentially, a one-bedroom condominium or a one-bedroom apartment is the equivalent in Winchester zoning of a five-bedroom single-family home in terms of cars generated or parking need. Now, there is, I believe, a desire by all parties to make sure that parking works appropriately in different districts. But in order for us, or order for you, I think, to create a logical parking standard, I think you have to back away from the proposal in 4, which maintains the concept that a one-bedroom apartment is equivalent to a one single-family home of 4 or 5 bedrooms because it's 2 units per. And I think just simple reflection indicates that that's not the case, whether or not it's a person over 65 in that, or whether it's a person starting out, or whether indeed it's a single-person household, of which there's more than 15 or 20% in your community today. The other point on parking that I think is important, and it goes to both articles. We heard a lot, and I think it was absolutely correct, about the process in Article 3 with the Immaculate Conception Church, and how people were involved, and how people were asked their opinion, and how long it took to put together, but you voted unanimously tonight to do that. I would say the people I represent, which is Winchester Associates, and every property owner, whether there's 30 or 35, from Main Street in Woburn down to Skillings, simply deserve the same process. They deserve to come before the planning board in the master planning process and make a case. because there is a context to what exists today. There was a planning process in 97, 98, 99 that looked at Upper Main Street and said, we don't want to have one great big GB strip, and we do not want to have retail up in North Main Street, because simple retail is the worst possible thing for those neighbors. It's the simple, most intense use you could have. It's not only somewhat unattractive with asphalt pads and buildings, but it also creates the largest amount of in and out traffic on a main street. So this town meeting, actually mirroring what you did a few minutes ago, unanimously said, let's take Main Street and break it up into pieces. Now, I believe the planning board when they say they would like to take a look at North Main Street. And I think they should be given the opportunity to do that. And I think the people I represent and all the other business people whose livelihoods will be affected tonight, who haven't had that wonderful, patient process, would like to have an opportunity to discuss what's going to happen. The process was designed in terms of density, not to create massive buildings, because the reality is, ladies and gentlemen, the height never changed. The original general business district height stayed the same. The floor area ratios stayed the same. It's just that the uses in the buildings changed. And there was an attempt to relate the parking to the smaller unit sizes so there could be a diversity of housing, as I believe one speaker has just said, along one of the historic main streets of the community, one of the busiest streets, instead of trying to put a diversity of housing into a built-out single-family community, in which some issues you have all over the town today, as you know. The idea, but the planning board, and I was one of the consultants working with the planning board on that, was to create a diversity and to try to blend parking standards with open space standards, and yes, design standards. And may I have an extension of 5 minutes?
It's moved and seconded. Speaker's time be extended 5 minutes. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you. And yes, as I heard tonight at the planning board, there were pieces of it that should have been part of it, but never were, such as historic preservation elements and certain other design elements. But it's a balancing act. I think what the proponents of Articles 4 and 5 have put together, I think they've touched an honest nerve that everybody in town would like to see Upper Main Street look better. If you drive up that street, I think it leaves a lot to be desired. But one of the main reasons it's weak is because you basically have a building on an asphalt pad, building on an asphalt pad, one after another after another. There is no sense of continuity. There was a speaker earlier that said, oh, they can bring buildings close to the street. The idea there is to put the parking in the rear or below the building so it doesn't look like a mall in the middle of your community, so that you create that urban streetscape. And it is an urban area. I mean, you can go up and look at items there. I mean, there's Cocoa Badakian, there's all kinds of almost semi-industrial uses that are historical. The idea was simply to create diversity on that street. I think it's wonderful, and you certainly have every right to revisit what the planning board and the town meeting did 6 years ago. But more than anything, I'm asking for a simple process, for a simple fairness in the process. We've had a number of individuals, and they're active in the community. They're not necessarily from that neighborhood, but they are involved in that neighborhood, and they want to bring before you what they think is correct for everybody else on Main Street. Well, they may be right, but I think a process of fairness, which has been a hallmark of this town meeting every time I've addressed it, and from various times from 1980 to 2006, as they've given people chance. You have that chance in the master plan process. I sincerely urge that on a question of fairness here, give the people on Main Street, business people, the opportunity to speak and be heard and come back before you. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you very much. Gentleman in the red shirt, Mr. Onat, I think, yes. Come on down.
I'm not that good at speaking, but I'll try my best right now.
Get closer to the mic. There.
All right. My name is Tamer Anat. I live on 400 Cross Street along with my family, and I'm requesting support for the articles of 4 and 5. Dear town meeting members, my family and I live at Winchester Crossing condominiums at 400 Cross Street. Our home is surrounded by neighborhoods with GBD2 and GBD3 zoning. We therefore request support from the town meeting members for warrant articles, providing a density cap of 10 units per acre in the GBD2 and GBD3 zones and requiring 2 parking spaces per unit. Why do we need these articles? Developers are motivated to make money. Increased density and traffic, impact on pedestrian safety, and the Winchester school system are not topics of concern to the developers since the current GBD2 and GBD3 zoning requirements fall short of protecting our neighborhood from unreasonable development. When pressed by these issues, developers have been able to hide behind the current zoning requirements even though raised concerns are serious and valid. Complies with all existing zoning requirements is an easy escape for developers even when we all know that some of the existing zoning requirements for GBD2 and GBD3 do not protect the well-being of the residents of this town. Our experience shows that 1.5 parking spaces per unit zoning requirement is not realistic for today's living conditions. Our development at 400 Cross Street provides 2 parking spaces per unit, and even that is not sufficient because there is no guest parking. Insufficient parking for residents and visitors raise a serious concern for pedestrian safety since insufficient parking unavoidably causes more cars driving around looking for parking spaces. Where will unit owners without sufficient parking spaces park? Where will visitors park? There is no street parking around Main Street and Cross Street during the winter months. This means people will have no choice but to park on the small private road that goes through our development. That would be a major pedestrian safety concern with our condominium community. There are small children walking on sidewalks of our condominiums. The current traffic situation on Main Street and Cross Street, and especially at the intersection of Main Street and Cross Streets, is worrisome and is dangerous exposure we are subject to on a daily basis. There are already cars parked along Main Street on weekday morning rush hour, blocking our visibility in order to make a left turn and creating potentially dangerous situation. This area is also unsafe for pedestrians. For example, we walk our 2-year-old toddler to and from Creative Corner in the mornings, 8 a.m., and at nighttime, 6 p.m. There are many cars that buzz by Main Street, ignoring the fact that they must stop for pedestrians at a crosswalk. Without these articles, the density cannot be controlled and the traffic in the region is bound to increase, and insufficient parking will only make this problem worse. We also worry about the big-scale condominium construction frenzy that's been going on and is proposed to continue in Winchester. When a developer decides to build however many units they like in a small lot because the existing zoning requirements allow them to do so, does the town of Winchester have the resources to provide sewage, water, and other public services to all these units? Isn't there a limit to what the town can handle? How about the town's responsibility to approve the safety and soundness of condominium constructions and provide occupancy permits? Did you know that there was a building code violation that was a major health and safety concern in all 18 units in our development at Winchester Crossing? This was discovered as a result of our personal efforts after many months of living in our brand new homes. Today we feel fortunate that no one was harmed. This should be taken as a lesson, and we should be cautiously realistic about the town's resources to oversee and quality control such large-scale productions. There is a lot that the developers decide which you cannot control. However, the maximum number of units per acre is a major decision that you can make today. Please vote to put a limit and control the most important aspect of developers' operations. Talk about infrastructure for the town of Winchester. We also like to express our sincere concern for the Winchester school system. We help you understand the reality that families live in condominiums. In fact, it is the only way that young families such as ours can enter the Winchester school system. For example, in our 18 unit development. Currently, there are 6 children, with others expected in 2007. With so many young children currently living in condominiums and many more condominiums being proposed to be built, what does the town have in place to maintain and hold up the reputation of Winchester school system? I am familiar with the Winchester school system firsthand from my experience here as a student and a resident years ago. I returned to this town as I would also like my daughter to receive the good education.
Go ahead and finish up.
I have returned to this town as I would also like my daughter to receive the good education that I have during my years here. My wife and I are disappointed to see the Winchester school system put at risk with so many condominiums being proposed to be developed without proper planning. Without these articles, potential developers will continue to exploit the current GDB2 and GBD3 zoning requirements and propose to build as many units as possible with the least amount of parking they can get away with. That's what has been going on, and it will continue unless you take action today. Please support Articles 4 and 5. I would also like to add, there was a comment earlier about some of the kids at our condominiums going to private schools. There's only one right now, but it's not, it shouldn't change the fact that if people live in condominiums, that the town should expect that they have the obligation to educate them.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. Further on the question, Mr. Conti and then the gentleman up back. Mr. Conti.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, fellow town meeting members. You know, I wasn't going to speak on this proposal until some comments were made that frankly strike me as irrational. And I have to say that the idea that, you know, as the previous speaker said, that, you know, young people can't afford to buy homes in Winchester. Why? Because we have restrictive zoning. We hear all this talk about the necessity to have affordable homes, but when somebody comes up with a proposal to allow for affordable housing, oh, it's too dense, you can't have that. Now, you know, in fact, the previous speaker, if we had this 10-unit development, 10-unit per acre restriction, would not have been able to get that proposal that the previous speaker his development, excuse me, would not have been able to have been built in this town if there had been a 10-unit per acre limitation. And with respect to the parking, I think I won't reiterate everything. The planning board statement about why we should vote no on Article 5 is right on. I just want to emphasize one point, the fact that if you reduce the density requirement, what you'll have is bigger units being built. And if you're worried about having too many kids in the school system, bigger units will produce more kids in the school system. So, you know, think about that. But getting on to the parking issue, where I think the planning board made a mistake in thinking that this would be an interim measure, as the moderator told us, there's no such thing as an interim measure. It takes a 2/3 vote. If there is any opposition, any serious opposition, you don't get a 2/3 vote. So what we adopt today, we're going to be stuck with for a long time, I suspect. And the planning board may make some proposals, but it'll be very difficult to change it once we impose a two parking space per unit limitation. And I'd like to point out that as one of the previous speakers said, there's a difference between a single-family house. When somebody throws out a figure, as the planning board chairman did, about how many cars per unit we have in general in Winchester, there's a difference. If you're talking about a house on the west side with 5 bedrooms, sure, it's going to generate a lot more cars than a single bedroom apartment on Main Street. And the fact that we have a parking ban on parking on the street during the winter months in Winchester tells us that if a development only has 1.5 units per 1.5 parking spaces, excuse me, per unit, effectively that's all the cars that you're going to get because there is no place else for people to park. People who want to have 2 and 3 cars will not live in a one-bedroom apartment where the development only has 1.5 units 1.5 spaces per unit, excuse me, because simply there is no other place to park. You can't park on the street in Winchester in the wintertime, and effectively that will be the limit that will be enforced because of the inability to park anywhere else. So I suggest that the 2 space per unit requirement is unnecessary and will be self-defeating. And furthermore, will create, with respect to the units that have already, the developments that have already taken place, will make them non-conforming uses, which is not an ideal situation. So I would ask that both of these proposals be defeated. Thank you.
Thank you. Further on the question, Mr. Albiani, and then this gentleman right here.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Albiani.
Town meeting members, fellow Winchester residents. My name's Paul Albiani. I'm 56 years old. I was born in Winchester. I grew up in Winchester, and my wife Teresa and I have chosen to raise our 4 children in town. I run a business in Winchester. I love this town, as does everybody here. That's why we're here. Articles 4 and 5 regarding parking and density in newly formed GBD2 and GBD3 are, in my opinion, ill-advised. Hundreds of hours of hard work and planning by many people were invested in creating this zoning, which was approved by town meeting. There were citizen surveys taken. There was much discussion about improving Main Street, and we're talking about Main Street here, for the betterment of all. And now there's a proposal to stop it before it really has a chance to work. We haven't really given it a chance to do what it was intended to do with North Main Street. Winchester desperately needs more affordable housing and market housing. I'm on the Winchester Housing Partnership Board because I'm passionate about finding ways to create affordable housing for people in this town that more people can live here. It's important for business to have residential units downtown. It helps business, and it will also generate tax revenues for the town, which is also crucial. Increasing parking requirements will smother good proposals for the town. I think that the site plan review, the planning board, the processes that developers have to go through to get a project developed is where we should try to fine-tune the development and make sure that it fits. I don't think that making the parking requirements stricter or making the units fewer units per acre is exactly what will happen. Is it will make larger units and more bedrooms. And again, just to close, we're talking about Main Street in Winchester. We're talking about sidewalk streets. We're talking about public transportation. When you talk about a space and a half per unit, it's reasonable to think that somebody's going to use the sidewalks and the public transportation. And if there are not enough spaces there, they won't rent the place or they won't buy the place. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Gentleman right in the second, third row.
Thank you.
Should be on.
It is. Thank you very much. Hi, my name is Craig Miller. I live on Wendell Street, which is in the North End area, about a quarter mile.
Keep the mic close there.
Can you hear me now? Is that
Yep.
better? Sorry. I live on Wendell Street, which is about a quarter mile from the Main Street area that we're talking about tonight, the GBD 2 and 3. I also work at Waterfield Design, and our offices are on Cross Street, which is also in the North End, not too far from the subject areas. I think I fully support Mr. Arrico's two articles tonight for a couple of reasons, but primarily because I think it's consistent with the heart of the issue that we're all talking about, and that's what is consistent with the area of Winchester. What's the look, the character, and the feel of our town? And I think the unlimited zoning that we have, or the unlimited density that the current zoning now has, provides a pretty significant loophole to the consistency and the character that we're all trying to protect here in Winchester. None of the streets that surround this area. None of the side streets that surround the North Main Street area were designed or built to handle the kind of overflow traffic or parking that we're talking about having with these very dense developments that have been built and that are proposed to be built and that can be built by the existing zoning. And unlimited density, in my opinion, is wrong for a town like Winchester. I think Somerville and Cambridge and Dorchester and other cities like that, 30-plus units per acre would be fine for that. But Winchester is not Dorchester or Cambridge or Somerville. Winchester has a special and unique kind of village character to it, and it's one of the reasons why we all love Winchester so much. I think the master plan will take a long time to reach consensus on these issues. This is a responsible way to limit the density to a level that is consistent with the area immediately surrounding the North Main Street zones, and I think it allows us to take a good hard look at what actually should be built there. I think a lot of the reason why we had such unanimous consensus on the Immaculate Conception Plan, although I was not part of that process, it appears anyways, that one of the reasons why we had such unanimous consensus to the Immaculate Conception Plan was because its density was reduced to that which mirrors the area around it. And coincidentally, that density is under 10 units per acre. And so I was impressed by the amount of unanimous support for that proposal, and I think in large part it's due to the fact that its density was reduced to be consistent. I think approval of Article 4 and 5 simply ensures that proposals that come forward from now on will be consistent, will bring their proposals to the table in a way that will be consistent with what the area already is, what the area was, and what the area should be going forward. So I would recommend that this is a reasonable and very responsive way to keep the area consistent with its existing character while we have a chance to look at the master plan through the consultant that was just recently hired. So I am in favor of all of the articles.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Howley was next.
The Board of Selectmen voted 4-0, one abstention, Mr. Johnson abstaining, in favor of the warrant Article 4 to raise the parking requirement, minimum parking requirement. We feel that it much more closely represents the reality of parking and vehicle usage and demand in Winchester, and we think it's something that's important to do. The Board of Selectmen also voted unanimously, that is 4-0, one abstention, in favor of warrant Article 5. We have been heavily involved in discussions with regards to Immaculate Conception. We are now heavily engaged in discussions regarding the Hamilton Farm. And we believe that what we're hearing and what the neighbors are asking for who live in GBD 2 and GBD 3 is some immediate relief, some sense that in fact there will be a pause in the kind of development that is going on right now and that may potentially occur while the master plan and comprehensive planning takes place. And it's not a recommendation that we arrive at lightly in light of the unanimous recommendation by the Planning Board to the contrary. But we do feel that the neighborhood needs relief now, and we also feel that the master plan process that may take a little while should be the vehicle by which this town meeting once again revisits and adjusts zoning going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Surbier, and then Mr. Arrico is looking to sum up. There's two people up there, too. I'm sorry.
Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, the Housing Partnership Board voted unanimously to oppose both Articles 4 and 5, and two considerations guided our vote. There were two initiatives underway in town. Mr. Van Aken described the master plan. The town is also working on a smart growth grant And we feel that changes both in the parking and in the density cap should be undertaken kind of systematically and comprehensively as part of these two initiatives and not on a piecemeal basis, on an individual basis. Second, parking and development density are directly related to economic development, which in turn is directly related both to the tax base of the town and our tax rates and to the opportunity to improve the affordability of housing opportunities within Winchester. The town has been following what is referred to as an inclusionary housing policy, which as part of any multiple unit housing development, a certain percentage or a certain number of those units are reserved for middle and moderate income families. And so to achieve our affordable housing goals, to achieve our economic development goals, we need housing that is more than just single family and two family housing. I'd also like to comment as a transportation professional and echo the comments that both Mr. Connery and Mr. Grensbach made. If you look at parking and the way it's been handled around the country over the last few years, it's no longer handled by a single number. And in fact, towns are increasingly specifying a parking maximum rather than a parking minimum. The parking is looked on as the number of bedrooms, the expected number of occupants. Parking ratios are defined separately for occupants and for visitors. So while there may be a problem with the current parking, I think this is not the right solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, we have two gentlemen up back, and I'll hear them, and then Mr. Rico has been trying to get my view, obviously, to probably wrap up. And I'm sensing that we're getting ready to vote here, and we're getting near the bewitching hour. Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm opposed to Articles 4 and 5, but for a different and more fundamental reason than we've heard so far. The idea to cap the number of units to 10 per acre may sound reasonable, but to me, it obviously devalues the value of that property for the present owners, and to me, that sounds like a lot like a taking. A violation of the takings clause of the Fifth Amendment. I wonder if the town council has any opinion as to whether or not we're getting close to the takings clause violation. Nor shall private property be taken without just compensation.
Okay, that's your question, sir?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Welch, on the question. Can we have your name, sir, for the record?
Well, my name is John Natale, Precinct 2.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Moderator, that recent case law has indicated that you only have a taking under the various provisions of the Massachusetts Articles of Rights and the federal Constitution when you have no economic use of the property, and that would certainly not be the case under the proposal here.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Way up back.
Clarification on what the selectmen were just recommending, that on Article 5, you're suggesting that we use this as a stopgap to give the neighbors relief. Is that correct?
Mr. Howley, question is whether or not in your recommendation you meant to give the neighbors relief.
In the time that we had to discuss it, the board felt that it was a reasonable proposal, that 10 units per acre would be responsive to some of the pressures that the neighborhood was feeling, and that the long-range planning that would go on with the master plan would be, as it has always been, an opportunity for town meeting to once again hear if there are any further improvements to be made to zoning. I wouldn't describe it as a stopgap measure.
Further on the question, sir? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Arrico.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Just to maybe recap and answer some of the questions that came up. One of them, maybe the last question regarding it being a taking. These amendments do not change the size of the building that you can build. You can still build a big building, and it will basically create, the cap will create a situation where there will be a mixture of residential and commercial. And I really don't look at this and can't see this as being exclusionary zoning. This is the only zone in Winchester that allows residential development that does not have a density cap. All we want is the same type of restriction that's in every other zone that allows residential development. 30 units per acre is just totally unreasonable. 10 units an acre sounds reasonable. We've had the planning board come forward and say, listen, there's a problem with GBD2, GBD3, we're going to correct it. We think 1.5 to 2 spaces is logical and it's reasonable. I'd like to see that same type of logic applied to Article 4 to Article 5. We hired a planner. For many years, there was a debate about hiring a planner, the need for a planner. She's come forward and recommended favorable action on both Articles 4 and 5. I think a lot of weight should go towards her recommendation. Affordable housing. There is no affordable housing requirement in GBD2, GBD3. It's 100% market rate condos is what we're looking at. In my opinion, ladies and gentlemen, again, I'm here to say that what I'm proposing is reasonable, and it provides a reasonable correction to a problem right now. The process going through the planning board and the master plan is going to take 3 to 5 years, let's say. Markets change pretty quick, and developers will look at downtime to get permits, so when the market turns around, they have permits in hand to build condos. Two of the three speakers that we heard that are opposed to this either own land or represent people that own land on Main Street. So obviously we know where they're coming from. I'm here to represent neighbors along North Main Street who, again, look at 30 units an acre as being unreasonable. Thank you very much.
Are you ready for the question, ladies and gentlemen? Okay, the question comes on Article 4 on the main motion. This will be a standing vote, and I'd ask Mr. Leland to count the Finance Committee. Mr. O'Leary, make sure you count the selectmen here if they choose to vote. Mr. Nowell, question. Not to speak. Yeah, I know.
I need some clarification. I'm not quite sure. I think I misunderstood something.
Sure.
I thought Mr. Grenzebek said that Max and Main Street would be grandfathered. Did I misunderstand that?
The question that he had, he thought he understood Mr. Grenzebek as saying that Emax and what? And the 1020. I know he said that the Immaculate Conception would be grandfathered. Is that correct? Yes. And did you say anything about 1020? And what did you say?
It was a half an hour ago. It's our understanding that it would not that the Immaculate Conception would be grandfathered, but that it meets the requirements regardless of whether it's a 10 or 2. That they have sufficient parking and a low enough number of units so it would not affect them. On the 1021 Main Street, and I will turn to Ms. Bobrowski to confirm this, but it's my understanding that because they have filed a subdivision plan under the existing zoning rules, we cannot then change those rules retroactively. So they must proceed under the old rules. Somebody who files 2 months now after the town meeting passes a new thing would have to abide by the new rules. But the courts will not let us go back and change the rules retroactively.
I just, one minor clarification on that, and I don't know where your counsel is. Yes, sir. One minor clarification, that's on the assumption that an appropriate subdivision plan has been filed. I don't know if anybody has ruled on that yet. Is that correct?
Mark Bobrowski, I'm special counsel to the board. The assumption is correct, but furthermore, a definitive plan has to be submitted within 7 months and subsequently endorsed by the board for the exemption to ultimately apply.
Okay, right.
None of which has happened yet.
Yes, sir. Okay, you ready for the question, ladies and gentlemen? The question comes on Article 4. All those in favor of Article 4, please rise and the tellers will count. 2/3 vote required. I'll get you later. How many, sir? 25. 32. 20. Was that 20, Steve? 20. 39. All those opposed, please rise. 5. 7. 6. 13. 116 having voted in the affirmative, 31 in the negative, a total number of votes of 147, 98 required for passage. Article 4 passes. Town meeting will be in order. Now we turn, ladies and gentlemen, to Article 5 to see if the town will vote to amend the zoning bylaw, adding the phrase that in this GBD 2 and 3 districts, the allowed density shall not be more than 10 dwelling units per acre. All those in favor of this motion, please rise and the tellers will count. Fifteen. 11. 25. 33. All those opposed, please rise. 15. 13. 13. 21. 84 having voted in the affirmative, 62 in the negative, a total of 146 votes cast, 98 required for passage. Article 5 fails. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the bewitching hour. Before you go, let me just tell you, for planning purposes, the next meeting is Thursday. Articles 6 and 7, which are next, are going to be postponed when that comes up because there's a hearing that night, so that'll be at the end of the meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, it's moved and seconded that the meeting be adjourned. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you very much for your attention.
All right, good evening once again, ladies and gentlemen. As you see, the first session of Winchester's Fall Town Meeting has just adjourned. I'm going to go back and recap what happened before the recess, especially because it was an early recess and you may have missed it. Normally recess is around 9 o'clock. It opened with Article 1, which was reports from the town officials. We heard from Tom Howley from the Board of Selectmen talking about the 5 priorities of the board, that being energy conservation in the town government and buildings, transfer station improvements and recycling, collective bargaining, flood mitigation projects, 4 of which are done and 8 still to go, and cost reductions and revenue enhancements, referring to a $2.3 million projected deficit next fiscal year. Chris Linsky from the Finance Committee also commented on the deficits, saying that fiscal year 2007 drew $1 million out of revenues, and fiscal year 08 will draw an additional $1.5 million out of reserves, I should say. He commented on $3.5 million in energy costs to the town, and that the Finance Committee supported the Selectmen's efforts, and also warned that the town may need to consider a general override of Proposition 2.5. Bob O'Connor from the School Committee commented on the growth in enrollment in the schools, said that the Winchester school enrollments grew 11% between 2001 and 2005. The 20 comparable towns with which we compare ourselves grew 1% during that period. He said that Winchester spends 10% less per capita than those towns and is 19th out of 20 in per pupil spending, nevertheless. He said that the state provides $900 per student per year, which is only about 10% of the approximately $9,000 it costs to educate each student. He said the students, in spite of all this, the students have been delivering impressive results. Peter Van Aken from the Planning Board said that comment on the arrival of a new planner for the town, new part-time planner, and that a master plan is being created to address 3 points: neighborhoods, economic development, and fiscal impacts of planning. Leo Roach from the Library Trustees thanked the town for their support in restoring the hours to the library, and commented that the library has grown 50% in use in the last 5 years. And after the recess, we came back for Article 2, which was a report from Bob Cullen, Chairman of the Committee on Rules, addressing the issue that requirement that town meeting members must attend at least 50% of all the meetings. He said 17 town meeting members did not meet that requirement, but that the committee had resolved to its satisfaction all 17 of those, and asked that they make a good faith effort to improve their attendance. He also commented that beginning of town meeting, traditionally about 90% of the town meeting members attend, and that deteriorates to about 70 in additional sessions. However, he said there were no town meeting members that failed to respond to the committee. Therefore, the committee was asked that this be indefinitely postponed. There was no recommendations of dismissal of town meeting members. We moved on to Article 3, which was concerning with the rezoning of the Immaculate Conception property, former Immaculate Conception property on North Main Street, from a SCI's Conservancy District to a General Business District 3. The proponent of this article was, or the main speaker on this article, was Wayne Perkins, one of the principals of the Creative Corner Children's Learning Center that has been located on the Immaculate Conception property for the past several years. He said that they rented the school, Immaculate Conception School, which was vacant some years ago, and formed Creative Corner Children's Learning Center. He said they are proud of their good relationship with the residents and the neighbors in particular in that neighborhood. He said the parish closed in November of 2004, and they were in the process of looking for a new location for their school when the opportunity came in to make a bid for the property, which they purchased in August of 2005, with the sole reason, he said, to protect the Creative Corner Learning School. And he said they were not developers and did not intend to be developers of the property. They began discussions with the neighborhoods and the boards at that time. The plan being put forth before town meeting is to develop the property into 5 house lots instead of the originally proposed 18 condominium units. And that was in cooperation with the neighbors. We saw a map showing the 5 house lots and a potential outdoor playground for the school, and also that the parking lot for the school was moved away from the residential streets and from Main Street. Richard Grenzbach from the Planning Board says that the Planning Board approves it, and that is a binding agreement is part of this article, binding agreement on any developers. John Serbier from the Housing Partnership Board also said that that board supports it. Part of the agreement is a 5% of the sale price being contributed to the Winchester Housing Partnership. John Jubileo of Sheridan Circle, a resident of Sheridan Circle, made a presentation showing aerial shots of the area and spoke against GBD3 zoning. The selectmen supported it and thanked the neighbors for their hard work and their cooperation, all the parties for their cooperation in coming to an agreement, which became obvious when the article passed by unanimous vote. Not a single dissenting vote. 2/3, of course, was required. So Article 3 did pass, and the Immaculate Conception property was rezoned. Articles 4 and 5 were taken up together. Article 4 was a proposal to limit off-street parking or change off-street parking requirements from the current 1.5 units in the GBD 2 and GBD 3, General Business District 2 and 3, from the current 1.5 units to 2 units. And also Article 5 was to limit development to from 30 units per acre to 10 units per acre. And we had a lot of discussion on that. David Arrico, the proponent of the articles, both articles, said that the development on North Main Street was too dense. He said, in his words, it's not the Winchester I know. The intent was residential. He said the intent of this zoning was residential and commercial, but developers are just doing residential because it's more profitable. Again, bringing 30 units per acre down to 10 units per acre in Article 5. The planning board said that 2 spaces supported this. They said 2 spaces is consistent with the use. They supported this article, but also said that the town should update its parking requirements on a master plan. They spoke out against the density cap on Article 5 because they felt that some areas were appropriate for higher density use. They also said that addressing the number of bedrooms is better than addressing the density, the number of dwelling units. And also commented that the town might lose negotiating power for affordable housing if Article 5 was passed. John Connery, a professional planner, spoke and suggested that the town back away from the proposal. He said, again, emphasizing the fact that a 1-bedroom unit in this proposal would have the same parking requirements as a 5-bedroom house. He also said the residents deserve a chance to input on plans and asked that the town meeting give the planning board a chance to examine North Main Street more closely on a master plan. We heard from a Cross Street resident of the Winchester Crossing condos who spoke in favor of both articles. Town meeting member Anthony Conti supported the planning board and suggested that the 10 units per acre might discourage affordable housing in the town and urge a vote against that. Tony Albiani said that larger units with more bedrooms will result, again echoing previous comments. A Wendell Street resident spoke in favor and also said that Articles 4 and 5 preserve the character of the town. The selectmen supported both articles, saying that the residents in North Main Street needed some immediate relief and could not wait for the master plan to be passed. However, a couple of speakers, the planning board in particular, cautioned that there is a good possibility that the potential development at the GEI property across the street from Immaculate Conception would not fall under this regulation because a subdivision plan had already been filed and this could not be made retroactively. Although a little qualification at the end there was that an appropriate plan was filed. That had not been determined at this point. The Housing Partnership were the last speaker, one of the last speakers to speak, and said that they opposed it for the reasons they said that it restricts affordable housing goals in the town. Well, Article 4 did easily get the 2/3 majority required. That being, once again, to change the zoning to require 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit as opposed to the current 1.5 in these general business districts. And, but Article 5, the one to limit it, development to 10 units per acre, failed to get the 2/3 majority. And that brings us to the end of our town meeting session tonight. As if you just tuned in, we just heard that the next 2 articles, Articles 6 and 7, will be postponed because there's a hearing on Thursday night, but the next session of town meeting will be on this coming Thursday. We're a little limited in our graphics tonight, so I want to credit our crew. Producer, director of tonight's show is Adam Dusenberry. Don Cronin and Heidi Savino were on cameras. Linda Doucette was on audio. Marcia Brown was an assistant director tonight. And down in the hall with microphones, we had Jeff Dearman and Jenny Kanagi. A couple of other comments. One of the things we're working on, you may have noticed the pulsating video in the presentations. It is a mismatch between the video output and our cameras, and I think it's something we're going to look into to see if we can address, so we apologize for that somewhat distracting pulsation. In another programming note, there will be no live programming next week as we prepare an upgrade to the studio. I'm sorry, I'll take that back. There will be live programming, no pre-recorded programming. So live programming only next week. The town meetings and the board meetings will not be affected, but pre-recorded programming will not be broadcast next week on WinCam as we prepare for an upgrade in our master control. And the last note is tonight is Monday, November 6th. Tomorrow is Election Day, so we want to encourage you to go out and exercise your right to vote. For all of us here at WinCam, we want to thank you for joining us. We'll be back Thursday night with continuing coverage of Winchester's Fall Town Meeting. For all of us, I'm Alan Iden. Have a great night.